right? They've been in film since 2017, financing film in Nigeria. Most importantly, they've invested over 9 billion naira across 37 films. I was going to say, let's ask more energy now. You know, some of us have come from back in the day of VHS, VCD, exactly. Over 9 million in film and television. And this conference is really about how we can move the Nigerian film industry forward. It's about how we can make Nigerian films and Nigerian stories an asset capital. And that's what we're here for today. We're going to have lots of different conversations and panels. We're talking distribution, marketing, infrastructure, and all the things we need to scale to take our stories. Our stories are already international, but how far can they travel, right? They're traveling already, but we want to see how far they can travel. So thank you for being here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And this is it's not just a project that MBO Capital is going to be dealing with. We know that we need stakeholders involved in these conversations to see how we can make Nigerian film and Nollywood an asset capital for the future. I would like to invite our Executive Director of MBO Capital for the opening remarks, Mr. Adekunle Adebiyi. Make some noise. He's the money man. Ginger.
You need bigger budgets. Bigger budgets so you can do better quality film, so you can pay people better. And that will also mean that we need to collaborate, especially on the financing side, more people. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too long. I have a few slides I want to take you through. In terms of MBO Capital's film financing track record, we started in 2017. We were part of the Ink Blood slate that did 3 movies, Wedding Party 2, Moms of War, New Money. That was an interesting experience for us. It was our first foray into the sector. We learned a lot. We got all our money back eventually. I know Naz will be here at some point. I can see Naz now. Thank you very much for that, Naz. And then we took some time. Of course, COVID happened. We had to learn the lessons of how to make better investments in the sector. And we believe that we've learned those lessons. We dived back in 2022. We funded 2 films by MBO Studios, Jadio Shibera, some of you might know, Brotherhood and Gangs of Lagos. Don't worry, I'm not going to run through all the movies we financed, but suffice to say that there are quite a few of them, making up the 35 plus movies at this point. And I think we're now at the point where the last movie we financed was Project Assault. That's already out. We still have some more movies in development, but of course, as you'll hear, and we're going to show a short sort of docu-video that will delve into some of the issues facing the space, you'll see that we do have some challenges. And for us as a firm, it's not just important that we tell our own stories to our own audience. There's something going on with Nigerian culture now, African culture even, that is now sort of, I guess you would say, has entered the mainstream. I think we have a lot of the Nigerian diaspora to thank for that, the African diaspora, if you will. But for us, it's really important that we don't lose this momentum. You know, whether it's film, music, fashion, food, these things are now globally being consumed, and we want to continue to do that. So for us, okay, so this slide talks about the films that we've already sort of funded that are not out yet. Over the next 9 months, another 10 projects funded by MBO Capital will be released. The most interesting of all of them are interesting, but the one that really speaks to the future strategy that we look to employ is this movie, Clarissa. Clarissa was seeded and co-financed by MBO Capital. The total budget was $4 million. And I'm proud to say all that $4 million came from Africa. All right? It's never happened before, I don't think, on this scale. We are using Hollywood talent of African descent, the best way to explain it, to tell a global story. We have a global distribution company, Neon, attached to it. It's directed by A-list directors, the Asiri brothers. It's already been selected for the Directors Fortnight at the 2026 Cannes Film Festival happening next month, May. And so we're really excited because we believe if you can tell better stories, attach a global distributor to that project, you will of course see the returns, which are very important. Why are returns important? Returns are how we keep on telling more stories. If these things don't turn out to be profitable ventures, we will have to shut down, essentially. So yes, the last slide, which again, Nana basically stole, is talking about what we've done, talking about what we've done in the film space. In 2012, 590 million, and as you can see, we've been fortunate enough to double what we've been investing in the film sector every year since 2022. So to date, it's just less than 10 billion. And at our strategy retreat last November, our MD, Mr. Gideon Ogudari, who you'll be hearing from at some point, set us the audacious target even, of crossing 10 billion this year. As of today, we are nowhere near there yet, but it's okay because we have approval to disburse for 2 films. So by the end of April, we are around 2 billion. So that still leaves another 8 billion to go in terms of investments. So for all the film producers in here, if you have stories that you think will resonate globally, you can be part of that 8 billion story we need to tell. Thank you very much. I'll hand over now back to my
Thank you. And of course, the next stage of Nollywood. Sometimes we have to condense these things for us to really see ourselves and see how far we've come. So enjoy, and when we come back, we'll dive straight into the panels.
Performances, whether it's skills, it's just to make sure that it's positioned and it gets out.
And the BAFTA goes to my father's shadow, Camilo Davis Jr., and Ronnie Boys.
For decades, Nigeria's film industry, Nollywood, has been one of the most prolific. A critical limitation emerged: the local ceiling.
I'm not certain that in terms of financial viability, it is stunning results you get. You need to build out a home market strategy because, like I said, everywhere else you look around the world of films that are breakout, they're very popular in their home market.
To go to cinema, just economically, are very few.
So the question emerges: how does a Nigerian film move beyond its borders and become a global commercial asset? This is the story of a strategic shift, a transformation.
Something that Nigeria relates to, I can say, oh, this happened to me, or that happened to me, or this comedy is funny. It doesn't have to be slapstick, because your slapstick comedy locally, actually most likely we won't even translate internationally because they don't get it.
What you find is that, like, a lot of times it's like, oh, the brain needs to look like this, like you need to bust in like this, and then the guy can say, yo man, it's like, no, don't do that. Like, just stop.
The process begins long before the camera rolls. Stories are no longer shaken, co-productions emerge, bridging industries and unlocking new markets.
The distributor is very key to the visibility of the film, and when you find a distributor who not only believes in the story but is willing to put their money where their mouth is by investing in it, which is really what we did, because they formed part of our financing plan for My Father's Shadow, it goes a mighty long way.
But making the film is only half the journey. Distribution becomes the battleground. Traditional models, cinemas and DVDs give way to global platforms, film festivals, and international sales agents. Strategic premieres, carefully timed releases, negotiated rights. Every decision determines whether a film travels or stays home.
So you're making a film.
Where the VCD will be scratching and it's not showing again. Which were some of your faves? I'm sure some people here don't know what VCD is. So just to be showing our age.
Glamour Girl.
Glamour Girl.
Yeah.
Which one? Do you guys remember when you buy part 1 to 7?
Yeah.
What a time. He runs the Premium Pie Collective, which champions women's creativity and reinvention while partnering with global brands and shaping conversations around wellness and African womanhood. She's also a screenwriter, and she's written for Under the Influence, which showed on African Magic and Showtime, and went on to write her first feature titled Everything is New Again. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise as we welcome on stage Nicole Chikwe.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? Are we excited for the first panel? Yes, we are. Okay, so let's get into it. I have an amazing group of speakers here. We're going to be discussing marketing and distribution. I'm personally so excited to be speaking with and learning from these amazing, amazing people. I'll start off with Sanie Alasia. She's a writer, producer, and creative executive with a strong focus on Okiowa. He's here. Thank you. Please, round of applause as he approaches. He's a barrister turned investment banker and private equity professional with over 15 years experience in corporate finance and championing catalytic commercial capital across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. The next person I'd like to introduce was sitting right by me, Michael D. Williams. He's the general manager of the UK. She began her career in regulatory and compliance in financial services in the UK, and she's a versatile professional specializing in corporate and commercial law matters. Beverly, welcome to the stage. Thank you. Thank you so much. And once again, my name is Nicole Chikwe. I am a writer, screenwriter, content creator. As Wana had said, I had just written my first feature. Everything is new. Again, everybody please clap for me. The introduction was Inkblot. I don't know if Maz is here. Inkblot, that's my boss. And so I was very excited to hear about MBO's pledge to 10 billion this year, right? Because I'm working on my next 2 projects, so we're going to be speaking after. Thank you so much, because I must be there. So, in one sentence, what is the single biggest structural problem holding Nollywood's distribution back right now? In one sentence.
When you say structural problem, that is my answer, because my actual answer will be love for pirate television. Because we have people, they may not have that much money, but they can afford something, but they would much rather get it for free. You know, so I think that's the biggest issue with distribution, honestly. Yeah.
I think for me, it's probably the meeting of great writing with the financing to make it a big film. Finding writers is one of the hardest things, and that's the foundation of every good film. And if you can find that and have the money to take it where it needs to go, I think that would be it for me.
And for me, I think generally the ecosystem has a poor understanding, and I would say both sides: the investors, the filmmakers, the creatives. There's a very kind of simplistic understanding of how distribution works, how IP works. IP is very simplified. It's looked at like this big pizza, but actually IP is cut into so many different slices. And we don't understand the monetary attachments to all of these. And in turn, the distributors can be opaque sometimes with the way they deal with the creatives. So for me, that is one of the major blockers, I would say. Thank you.
Distributors get wrong, sorry, give me a second to think about this answer so I frame it properly.
Of course, no problem.
I think what distributors get wrong is that they have kind of unrealistic expectations. Many people have unrealistic expectations. They expect that, you know, you're just going to put your film out there and make millions and millions and millions. And yeah, that's obviously a wrong expectation. And they somehow also expect that once you've spent X and so amount on marketing, it should automatically translate into numbers, like how it would a normal product. But that's the thing about film, right? You could do everything right and have that marketing budget and still not have it translate into actual cinema sales. So I think those two. Yeah.
Okay.
So what was the other question?
The next question was, what does a great, like in an ideal world, what does a great release campaign look like to you?
Okay, so in an ideal world, a great release campaign will be one that obviously gets the attention of the everyday viewer and kind of lets them know what the film is about a little bit. And somehow, because we're in Africa, and again, piracy, one that somehow convinces the audience to go and pay to watch the film. Because it's one thing to have a good movie out, but again, Nigerians really love watching free content. Like, they could have the money to pay for that. They will have the money to pay to watch it on whatever platform, but they'll be excited when they can download it for free. So an ideal one would be not only getting them to know about the movie, but getting them to somehow feel loyal or feel indebted to you and feel like they owe you their money, basically. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Michael, my question is for you. I'd love for you to jump in here. Film One has a 5,000 Naira Wednesday pricing, which I think is an interesting intervention. Right now, cinema tickets, the prices have become a little bit unattainable for the majority of Nigerians, so that's quite an interesting intervention. My question is, does Ebony Life maybe have anything similar in the works maybe coming up? So I feel like there are lots of questions, it's quite detailed, but what do you think about that?
So I think it's important when you think about price, it's more important to think about value rather than price. So for us, we have, I think it's a 6,000 Naira midweek deal.
Okay.
And so, but what that is designed to do is not to give people a cheap price per se, but to encourage more people to come out midweek during the day. And so, and it's working. We've seen, I think, a 23% increase in our midweek daytime box office when we introduced that. But people are looking for value for money. And I personally, I don't advocate for us to price lower to get more people. Our price is our price, and people think it's tremendous value. And we still have people asking us, why are we so cheap, given the experience that they get? People say, really, why are you so cheap? You're the same, almost the same as everybody else. And we're like, well, you know, it's a fair price, and we like to give more value. And for people who wonder that, is if you pay, I don't know, 8,500 for a ticket, if you're just getting the movie, then quite rightly you might want to download or you might want to stay home. But if you get 8,500, pay 8,500, and you're in a very beautiful space, you can lean back, you can relax, you can get a blanket, you have the choice of 54 different types of food and drink, maybe you might feel like it's money well spent, as opposed to paying the same amount of money and I say to you, do you want popcorn or Pepsi? And that's kind of it.
Right.
And the seat in front of you is right here,
right,
instead of being able to fully extend your legs like that. So for me, it's always about value for money. It's never about the price, for anything.
Okay, round of applause, that was fantastic. Oh, I'm excited to go to Ebony Life to watch a movie now. That sounded so good, luxurious. So Michael, still on you, because we're still talking about pricing. Femi Adebayo's King of Thieves did something last year with community screening, just to try and make the film more accessible, quote unquote. And that was able to generate real revenue outside of the traditional theatrical release and circuit. And while that was a successful experiment, that does not necessarily mean that this is a viable distribution model. What do you think would need, and again, this is actually open to everybody, because I think it's quite an interesting one. What do you think would need to be true for community cinema to become a systematic, bankable channel rather than a creative workaround? This for everyone, please.
Yeah, so I think for community cinema, it needs to be, I think, a network of small, accessible cinemas at an accessible price for people. Nothing like Ebony Life. You know, just very simple. You can watch the movie, pay a small amount of money, you come, you go, and they do it all over again several times a day. And there's a place for that. But for me, it's not for someone to create that in VI to get everyone to come. You have to go to the community. Find the communities, and that's the market research will get in. And that's sometimes where Nigerian marketers fall down. They don't do the research. They'll just assume that there's a market somewhere. But have we ever asked people, if there was a cinema here, would you come? How much would you be willing to pay? And then if there's enough answers that are saying yes, then you should do that. The other thing that we find is that at Ebony Life Place, a lot of people come to the cinema, and I'll see them at maybe 6 o'clock. And I say, oh, are you about to see a movie? And they say, no, we've seen our movie, we're heading back. We have to get back early. So again, for us sitting on the island, we don't often realize that there are people who can't get back to wherever they want to go to because of transport, because of safety issues. and sometimes being able to take the movies to those people is really important for a number of different reasons.
Fantastic. Well, Adi, I'd like to throw that to you as well, just in terms of what do you think would need to be true for community cinema to become something systematic and bankable?
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, MBO Capital, for having us. So with community cinemas, it's a tricky one because there's a fundamental asset that costs something, which is the real estate. That real estate is a sunk cost, and there's furniture in it, which is also a sunk cost. There's energy, and those are, your immediate fixed cost, and then the variable cost is now the cost of.
As opposed to paying the same amount of money, and I say to you, do you want popcorn or Pepsi? And that's kind of it.
Right.
And the seat in front of you is right here,
Right.
instead of being able to fully extend your legs like that. So for me, it's always about value for money. It's never about the price for anything.
Okay, round of applause. That was fantastic. Oh, I'm excited to go to Ebony Life to watch a movie now. That sounded so good, luxurious. So Michael, still on you, because we're still talking about pricing. Femi Adebayo's King of Thieves did something last year with community screening, just to try and make the film more accessible, quote unquote. And that was able to generate real revenue outside of the traditional theatrical release and circuit. And while that was a successful experiment, that does not necessarily mean that this is a viable distribution model. What do you think would need, and again, this is actually open to everybody, because I think it's quite an interesting one. What do you think would need to be true for community cinema to become a systematic, bankable channel rather than a creative workaround? And this is for everyone, please.
Yeah, so I think for community cinema, it needs to be, I think, a network of small, accessible cinemas at an accessible price for people. Nothing like Ebony Life. Just very simple. You can watch the movie, pay a small amount of money, you come, you go, and they do it all over again several times a day. And there's a place for that, but for me, it's not for someone to create that in VI to get everyone to come. You have to the community. Find the communities, and that's the market research will get in, and that's sometimes where Nigerian marketers fall down. They don't do the research. They'll just assume that there's a market somewhere. But have we ever asked people, if there was a cinema here, would you come? How much would you be willing to pay? And then if there's enough answers that are saying yes, then you should do that. The other thing that we find is that at Ebony Life Place, a lot of people come to the cinema, and I'll see them at maybe 6 o'clock. And I say, oh, are you about to see a movie? And they say, no, we've seen our movie, we're heading back. We have to get back early. So again, for us sitting on the island, we don't often realize that there are people who can't get back to wherever they want to go to because of transport, because of safety issues, and sometimes being able to take the movies to those people is really important for a number of different reasons.
Fantastic. Well, Adi, I'd like to throw that to you as well, just in terms of what do you think would need to be true for community cinema to become something systematic and bankable?
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, MBO Capital, for having us. So with community cinemas, it's a tricky one because there's a fundamental asset that costs something, which is the real estate. That real estate is a sunk cost, and there's furniture in it, which is also a sunk cost. There's energy, and those are your immediate fixed cost, and then the variable cost is now the cost of the films that you're trying to show. If those areas where you're trying to go to the community and people who might not be able to afford to go to your what you call your orthodox cinema outlet, it's a dichotomy between popularity and value. So if I don't want to mention any areas, but there's some parts of the country that if I got 1,000 people to watch a movie there, probably the most I can get out of them is 1,000 naira per person. But there's some parts of the country that I could get 100 people and charge them 25K. So choose wisely. Now, there's now more sort of creative financing instruments that are becoming more available, where you have blended finance, and so you have some non-dilutive, I don't want to say grant funding, but those types of non-dilutive, longer-term stacks of capital that can move with commercial capital to start making those projects bankable. Because at the end of the day, the person who is trying to build a cinema in Agoiwoye in Ogun State probably still has the same cost of capital as me who's trying to build in Orange Island. It has to be a very creative use of space. And I think we'll start to see more of that as our markets grow, but we're not seeing enough of it yet. And that's why investors are still shying away from it. I'll leave it there, thank you.
Fantastic. Everyone, please, round of applause. That was so fantastic. So more longer term.
Please, of course. So I've kind of got my sports hat on because I do a lot of sports as well. And just to jump on your point, Bolade, about how can we take better advantage of spaces that already exist, right? And in a lot of states, in a lot of local governments, we have community spaces for sports, right? So we have stadiums that are wasting away. How can we, combine or get that synergy between sports and entertainment? I can tell you this, if you put screens in stadiums, they will come. They will come. So I think what we need to stop doing is thinking about the problem from a Western perspective, because that's kind of the impression I get. I do understand that there's a lot of challenges, and you're the money man. You have to think about the money first. But if we have this African first approach, then we can begin to think about how to tweak to adjust for Africa, right? Make it work for Africans, not Western principles, in Africa. I just thought I would get that out there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Sorry, can I?
Please go first.
Okay, so I think there was maybe Christmas or Easter, I saw this video. I don't know what state it was, again, I'm not shading the state, maybe Ilorin, maybe Ekiti. But if you see the line outside the Chicken Republic, like there was a line, there was a crowd, like you think it was like Disneyland or some shit. But for them, it's like, oh, it's this big experience, almost like an elevated experience. And like I said, people are traveling and going long distances just to go to Ebony Live. So my point is that if community cinema can kind of be more than just coming to watch a movie, so it's kind of branded as an experience, like a cultural moment, how Mr. Biggs used to be when I was in Port Harcourt. So they're not just coming to watch the movie. Because really, why it may not work now, because Nigeria, we may not have money, but nobody wants to feel poor. You don't want to feel like the poor person that cannot afford to go to a real cinema, But if the cinema is kind of marketed as something more, like the franchise is bringing so much more value, so you don't feel like a less than just because you're going to a community cinema instead of a normal cinema, I feel like that would really help. That would honestly really help. So franchises that the brand is all about, it's not just you're coming to watch a movie because you're poor in a poor place. It's like there's something else, again, it goes with use of space. So if it's offering a lot more, then yeah, there may be a chance for that.
That was fantastic. Anyone else want to jump in?
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes, quickly. No
do you know how many mums use cinemas for birthdays? It's the cheapest birthday. That's what I used to do for my kids, right? So we are celebratory by nature. It's cheaper for me to take 10 kids to the cinema and make it a birthday of it. I'm just saying, let's look at this from an African lens. Celebratory, use of space.
So I think I don't know why I forgot this, but when I first came to Nigeria, I was in Cross River, and I was with MBO, the Tourism Bureau there, and the governor had tried to build a cinema before and it didn't work, and he gave that project to me. And I heard that there were some very enterprising young men who had just left Genesis and were about to start their own chain of cinemas. And that turned out to be the guys from Film House. And so talked to them, and we agreed to do a deal. And so the state provided the financing to build the cinema. So my project was to build Calabar's first cinema. And we did, it was, I think, about 400 seats, sitting right on the Calabar, overlooking the Calabar River. Fantastic view, fantastic facility. And Film House helped us to build it, and they were the ones who would run it. They would run it, they would return a percentage every month back to the state government. And it worked very, very well until I left. And then for anybody who knows anything about cross-river politics knows that everything descended into chaos after Lea Limoke. He was the last sort of sane governor to be there. And so it worked well until, so there is a risk when it comes to having government. I also know in Akwa Ibom, there was, before we built our cinema, we used to go to Uyo and watch movies there. And that was built by the state government as well, as part of a complex which included.
And I feel like it goes down to what my comment about this international distribution thing is, that not all movies are meant for the big screen, right? So there can be a movie that is good quality and has everything right, but even in America, like not all movies end up being cinema titles really. And I feel like that's something that Nigerians need to be more aware of, that just because you've put so much money into a movie doesn't mean that the ideal place for it to be is on the big screen. So I wouldn't really say it's a marketing disconnect, because I wouldn't advise anybody to spend all their money creating online clouds, because you really don't know if that will translate. I think it goes more to, from when the film is being created, understanding that not all movies are supposed to be on the big screen, honestly.
Okay, fantastic,
Yeah.
great answer. And my final question is for Beverly. So, from a contracts perspective, at what point in a film's life does marketing become a legal and commercial obligation rather than just a strategic choice? And are producers currently signing deals where the marketing commitments are clear, or is that still largely informal? Like sometimes even just as a consumer, it's not really clear. It feels like marketing is like an afterthought, and then a lot of pressure is being put on the actors to leverage their own platforms, go and dance, wear your t-shirts. That's the marketing that I receive because I'm on social media. Thank you. So at what point is it like a contractual obligation? Are producers actually thinking about putting that in their contracts with, you know, distributors and financiers?
That's a really good question. I think you've answered some of it already, the singing and dancing on the t-shirts. I think it really depends on the type of producer you're dealing with. It's amazing to see this gathering, MBO Capital, shout out to them. They're working with people who want to take the market to the next level. But you know what, we're in a bit of a bubble because we're in VI, we're in Lagos, you know, and the bulk of producers are still not doing what they're supposed to do. If we look at the output of Nollywood, I would easily say that that 33 film slate represents less than 1% of what is being produced in this country. So it tells you that, by and large, it's still the wild, wild west, okay? We even have clients, as erudite and learned as they appear, they'll come running, oh, by the way, so there's an IP issue, and yeah, we didn't really sign a contract with the composition rights. And you're thinking, how? But then again, we shouldn't assume that people understand. This is the first question you asked. The very first question to open up this conversation was, what do you think are the major challenges? The contractual instability is a challenge for lack of knowledge. My people suffer for lack of knowledge. People just don't know. They don't know what they're supposed to know. So thank God we're in this room. Let's put it out here. Lawyers may be a cost center, but we will save you even bigger costs. Trust me, because guess what? The stakes are rising. The people who you could have exploited 10 years ago are waking up. They're like, oh, I did a composition for that film 5 years ago. Let me go and get the money. You know, so we need to really take our rights more seriously. Enforcement is also becoming a bigger issue, you know, and which is a good thing, which is a really good thing. We don't want people exploited, and that's another reason why our industry is still seen as risky. Because you put in $10 million, even if it's a syndication, and then someone comes from nowhere and says, I have a right to this film, it wasn't captured, that's an equitable right, but still a right that can be enforced. And we do disputes quite a bit in my law firm, Olisa Bakopanigo. We know what's going on in that terrain of disputes. It's getting nasty out there. So I think we need to take our contractual rights. Look at, from the minute you have that idea in your head about that amazing project, you talked about your projects, I hope you have your lawyers in mind already.
You'll be my lawyer.
Exactly. I didn't hear that part. You know, we need to take our creative talent as, we need to protect our creative talent and expression. We as a people, if we want to advance this industry, we need to take our IP rights far more seriously than we are, because IP rights are an asset, like my brother in finance and law said. It's an asset. You cannot feel it, touch it, but it's worth a lot. Your family 2 generations down can live off royalties. You can just sleep and relax, but you're not gonna get
so much. That was a fantastic answer. And thank you so much to our panelists. Now we're going to go into a Q&A session. So if anyone has any questions for any of the amazing panelists here, this is your time. Why don't you be going around with the mic?
Yes, we have 2 roving mics.
Okay.
Have lady in front, please. Where
There's someone there.
Okay, gentleman over there and then lady in front. Please let us know your name and then just go straight with your question.
All right. Good afternoon. Yeah, I have 2 quick questions. And it regards the cinemas. First off, why is it that there are no, or I believe there is nobody that regulates the quality of cinemas? Because even in Lagos, shout outs to Ebony Life seems to be the only cinema that cares about your comfort. I go to some cinemas and then I'm struggling to see what's on the screen. So it's almost like there is nobody that cares about that section of quality. Now, my second question, this one might ruffle some feathers. Why are we ignoring the elephant in the room when it comes to movie marketing? Now, I think a question was asked about movies that were good but had poor marketing. I don't think it was poor marketing. I think marketing was being overshadowed by giants. So take for example movies like Warlord, Love and New Notes, Bonobire, Dear, fantastic movies, absolutely brilliant. They were the best movies that came out in the past few months. However, people seem to have their faves, and once their faves market the movie to a particular extent, it overshadows every other person's work, and then these movies don't get to see limelight like they should. And other people that are not they're not fans of these big two, when they get to watch other movies that are not cinema worthy, they just conclude that, every other movie is trash, every other Nollywood movie is trash.
Okay.
So
so what's the question?
So the question is, what are we trying to do to actually regulate quality of movies that go in cinemas, and also the quality of the cinema output when it comes to comfort and movie screen?
Thank you.
Cinemas. There's 2 things. One, you have the Cinema Exhibitors Association of Nigeria, and they regulate whether something is even actually called a cinema. The distributors also look at all the cinemas to decide if they actually have the right projectors and the right experience for them to actually give them the films to show. Okay? Now, whether you feel that maybe Ebony Life is better than this or better, that's neither here nor there. It really is about there's a minimum standard that cinemas need to reach to be called a cinema, and the distributors will not give you their films unless. And then on top of that, there's a censorship board, and the censors also will inspect cinema facilities when you first open. So the question might be whether people are still monitoring that as time goes on. So that's the first thing. When it comes to film marketing, I really get a little bit distressed when people talking about certain films that overshadow other films. If you make a film and you market it really well, and it's nothing to do with the other films. You have your own film, figure out how to market it. Not every film is going to be a billion naira film. It doesn't matter. The question is, are you marketing it well enough? As a cinema, I can tell you this. There are certain producers of films that we see the film, we think it's a good film, we want it to do well because we want it to make money. We're actually calling the producers and saying, can you come and do a meet and greet? Can you give me a bigger standee? Can you do this? We're begging people to market their own films. So until you have filmmakers that become actual companies, and that company has built a team, there's a legal person on staff, there's a marketing person on staff, not just people making movies, right? So what happens is you get these really good creatives making a good film, but there's no one in the team that's responsible for making sure it's being marketed.
Right.
And usually that starts at the beginning,
With
right?
the contract.
So if you notice, what is it, that movie Clarissa? That's opening second half of this year. We've already been hearing about Clarissa for months. Mo Buddha just finished shooting a movie yesterday, but she announced it at the beginning of the year, and it's a movie that's going to be showing in December. So most people don't get those fundamentals right, that you start announcing your movie, showing behind the scenes, months and months and months before it happens. For the people who do it, you now say why they're overshadowing your film. Come on now. I think there's a lot of growing up. There's a lot of growing up that needs to happen in Nollywood. It's too sentimental. Their films really well. All credit to them. And everybody else just needs to catch up.
Thank you. We have a question in front very quickly. Hold the microphone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pretending like I know nothing. I struggle with the Nigerian cinema distribution channel. I admit my ignorance. If I own a concrete building, a cinema building, I think my focus would be on keeping as many butts on the seats all day long. But when it's fixed at a certain price point, it's like you're focused on the 1% or the 5% or the 3% when we're over how many millions of Nigerians who probably might be able to afford a middle price point. Why are you leaving all of that money on the table? That's one. Two, respectfully to everybody on stage, with the exception of Everything Live, and I will explain my thinking again as someone with minimum understanding of the business behind it. Everything Live started out by creating content. So many years later, when they now decided to open a cinema, it kind of made sense, right? And if Everything Live gives precedence to their own in-house productions, I will kind of understand. But if my business is the business of owning a cinema, do you not see the conflict of interest if you invest in other films? Is there no conflict of interest? Because Mr. Williams said people market harder than others and maybe you need to catch up. Sir, respectfully, you know that it's not always as simplistic as that. If I shoot a fantastic film, it doesn't matter how fantastic it is. If you place my film at 10 a.m. on a Monday morning, nobody is going to watch it. So who makes these decisions?
Can I tell you?
Yes.
I can tell you. And we don't like certain people, so we give them other film times. And I've addressed this on a podcast recently. A film comes to us. It's a great film. We're going to give you the best film times possible. This happened, in fact, in the last 2 weeks. We saw a film, great film. Wasn't marketed well, but we said it's a good film. Everybody deserves to see it. Give it the best film time, 7 p.m., 9 p.m. It played to 5 people per showing. Am I going to give it great film times next week? Absolutely not. We're running a business. So people who see these things in a sort of abstract way, just understand this. We are a business. We want to sell as many things as possible. I don't care who made the film or why. Is it a good film? I mean, half of the Hollywood films, do we know them? We don't know anybody, right? A Marvel film will come. Everybody knows Marvel. Marvel film comes, we give it the best film times. The last couple of years, they had some terrible films. Nobody came to see them. We gradually ease them out of those slots immediately and give it to another film. But if it was a Nigerian filmmaker, now luckily the Marvel people are not coming for us, right? But if it's a Nigerian, it's all sentimental. Instead of saying, can I see the numbers that I did last week? Oh, that's why you moved my slots. It's just a numbers game. And there's one last thing I want to say. I want to lay this myth to rest, at least for this room. During December, there was this myth about people getting the best film times, etc. Everybody's heard this, right? And other people didn't get the best film times. And for the people who argued this, all I had to say to them is this. The film that you're saying got the best film times, in this case it was Behind the Scenes. Let's just put it out there. Behind the Scenes got 11, 1. You're saying, yeah, but I didn't get 9, that's why you're being unfair to me. And I'm saying to you, but this other film that you are complaining about sold out 11, sold out 1, sold out 3, 5, 7, and 9. And then when it came to 7 and 9, and people couldn't get into the screen, and they now came into your film because they needed to see something. What are we talking about? So if someone, and everybody gets this wrong, it's Christmas. Everyone's away from school, offices are closed, people can see the film any time of damn day that they want. If they still didn't come to see your film, don't blame the time, please. Right? So we understand what we're doing, and we want to make as much money as possible. We don't care who is helping us to make the money, right? And it's just this weird sentiment about who and why and who knows who. I don't know anybody. Huh?
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams, and thank you so much for the
by the way, I love you dearly. But I know you well, but if your film didn't do the numbers, the next week I'm still not going to give you great film times. And you're someone I know and love. But it's business.
Thank you so much, panelists. Wanda, anything else? Let's just round up here.
Thank you.
Yes, this was fantastic. Any other questions, please? Meet the panelists afterwards. Thank you so much, and it was absolutely fantastic being the moderator for this wonderful panel. A huge thank you to our amazing panelists once again. Thank you so much for the riveting conversation. Alrighty.
Ladies and gentlemen, please make some noise for Nicole Tickling. Thank you very much.
I would first of all ask that, in one sentence, does scale determine the success in Nollywood today? Let's go straight into it. Let's start with Lajo, actually.
So I just arrived. I'm kind of really new in the industry, so I'll listen to my ogas at the top and then.
I respect that.
Yes,
Naz, I think you should take this bullet first.
I think success is relative.
Okay.
I think the most important thing is, are you successful at your budget level? So people always struggle with the idea that big budgeting requires success. One of the things that I used to say a long time ago was our most successful film from a returns perspective was The Arbitration, which was our smallest film, because on the Times Money Back it made the most money. And our big films obviously also made money, but it's a different return perspective. So if you're going to spend money on a film, your return perspective is different. AAA mentioned that they spent $4 million on Clarissa. So for example, if Clarissa made the returns The Arbitration did, they are probably all getting fired. But from the investment that we made in arbitration, it worked for us. So it just depends.
I'm in agreement with that as well. Shani, please chip in.
Hello. I think it's interesting. I came from a music background before we got into film. So I think in music, we're always kind of conditioned to look at success as how far can the music go in terms of, artists will say, oh, they're singing my songs in Iceland, that means something. But I think in film, I actually prefer working in it because you can measure everything far more clearly. And there's a better idea of shaping what success looks like in each film. And like Naz said, documentary, the goal with that was very much, we knew this was going to be consumed by a global audience. Like it wasn't a film being made for the Nigerians that know Wizkid. this was specifically like we wanted to sell it to an HBO, which we did sell it to get it open to a global audience, and for us, it just being sold to that streamer, you made your money back, of course, but you knew that you were gonna get the eyeballs you wanted, so that was success for us.
Nice. Yes, hi everybody. Glad to be here. Please, my film Onobere is still showing in the cinemas. It's our final week.
Plug the marketing, please.
Yeah, so please, please watch it. Thank you for having me, Abimbola, and I want to HBO MBO. So I think it will depend on what success means to you as a filmmaker. I think that for many people who do film, they've only mostly ever done art. And so it would make sense to really understand the business side of things beyond just seeing it as a filmmaker. Some of the things I did, thinking as creatives, thinking as business people, and I do agree with what the speakers before me said. Many times we talk about how much this film made, but we don't often talk about how much it cost to make this film. And if you've stayed a while in the industry, there will be people offering to invest money. But I'm usually very conservative because I'm like, I need to figure out how to make your money back. So I think it comes down to what does success mean to you as a person. If I'm doing a film for YouTube, my idea is low budget, low cost, hopefully high returns. But even if I don't make the YouTube money back, if for example, Onobere was funded partly, well mostly, by African No Filter and CC Hub. But I know that one of the things that they looked at under the Gates Foundation, I know that one of the things that they looked at in giving us that grant was what had we done in the past. And so even if I had made a YouTube film that maybe did 1 million views and I didn't make my budget back, because it gave me that track record, even though it didn't make its money back, it became a successful film. Because from it, I was able to get something that now brought me even more money. So I think it comes down to what the filmmaker tried to achieve with that film in particular. And then because I did Christian films, so for me it's beyond the money, but it doesn't mean that the money is not important. It's very important. So it depends on what I'm trying to achieve with that film in particular. And at the end of it, that's what it comes down to. So that when we are calculating how much this person made in the box office, we're able to calculate how much they make the film, what's their cut in it, what's the return on it. So if it's a low budget film, but it does really well, I'm talking for a while, sorry, apologies. I'm wrapping up in 1 minute or less. When I was growing up, I had a friend who were the only ones in their compound who had a TV. My dad didn't like many Nollywood films because he'd be like, why did they show Tony Gomez coming down the staircase, carrying his bag, going to the car? Why did they show the car driving out? But in my friend's compound, they were the only ones that had a TV. And there would be like 30 adults in that house watching it. And they would watch every single second, parts 1 to 3, many of them standing. So it also comes down to what audience are you making this film for? Because in my home, it wasn't really a very big deal. But in their home, those were successful films. So it comes down to a lot of factors. But I think making your money back is definitely a major thing to have in mind. And then what are you trying to achieve with your audience and how much do you make the film? Hope that answers it.
Okay, so from this, you've been able to tell important things first. Success is very relative, definitely.
Yep.
There are a few things that we need to talk about when it comes to global acceptance, when Shani touched on that, but most importantly, you said something, Ladri, that is very important, which is that even as filmmakers, a lot of us only look at the creative side of things and we forget the business side. And I think even me, for example, as a filmmaker who's been in this like going on 12 years, I think that that's an aspect I struggle with as well. And I'm learning that I struggle with it, then I have to hire someone who understands that side, and being able to collaborate with someone who understands business and me being a creative kind of helps to find a balance. So now let's move straight into big budgets versus small budgets. When it comes to filmmaking in Nollywood, would you say that, or does a big budget actually fix anything? And if it does, what does it not fix? So what does it fix and what doesn't it fix?
You're looking at me. There is a...
No, you're a big boss now, please go ahead.
So I think when you talk about film industries, you want to make big budget films. It is a mark of success of an industry that the industry is able to make films that, for its own definition, are big budget, right? Because you know that those are the films that move the industry forward, they create investment, they create jobs, they create opportunities. So it is important that your industry can generate in this market, $100,000 films, $500,000 films, $1 million films, and for them to do that, there has to be the other side that people make their money back from investing in those titles. That is the way the ecosystem spins on itself. If you were here for the presentation that AAA did, you would see that a large chunk of the films they made were financed on the other side from an output deal via Netflix and Amazon. So what that meant was there was an investment on the other side for an offtake that allowed those big budget films to be made. And if you worked in Nollywood in that period of the streaming wars, you could see the effect on the industry for the impact of big budget films. And so they transformed the industry by crowdsourcing in investment. And that enables people to have dignified and fulfilling professions. So that is why, from an industry standpoint, big budget films are important.
All right, so I'm going to go straight to this, Shani. Seeing as you've worked on a global scale in terms of music and talking about this Whiskey documentary, do you think there's a minimum viable budget for global competitiveness?
Sorry, say that one more time?
Do you think there's a minimum viable budget for global competitiveness?
That's a great question. I don't know if there's a minimum value budget, but I very much, when we're producing films, I'm kind of working with the filmmaker to understand what they need, especially, I'm speaking about unscripted. Scripted is a whole different kettle of fish, but I think when you're speaking about unscripted, we all see the similar budgets, anywhere between $1 to $3 million. That seems to be, both internationally and here, what you need to make a film of a certain standard. I think me working as a producer, if I see something below that, I typically ask why. Just
sorry, you.
No, that's how I feel.
Big boys.
No, I would ask why just because I want to understand. Okay, why is it that? Is it part of the story? Is that what you're doing? Where do you plan? Where do you want to see this go? Again, I think I take a lot of like how I deal with like artists, and by artists I mean filmmakers and music artists in a similar way. When I meet music artists, I ask them, okay, you're really talented, but what do you want to do? Do you want to play the O2 Arena or do you want to stay in Lagos? Both are fine, you can answer, like there's no wrong answer, but me as an investor, I want to know. And similarly with filmmakers, if you're bringing me an incredible film and you have X budget and you're like, oh, you know, I just want my parents to be able to go to Silverbird and see my film once. I'm like, cool, but that might not be for me. So I think you really just have to know what it is you're trying to build, and if that budget is to go to, you know, the Netflixes, the HBOs, the Cannes Film Festivals, whatever it is, there typically does tend to be a range you have to fall in between.
Okay, so Naz, I'm going to throw this back to you again quickly before I move to the next one. What's your take on this?
So I think it's a function of what your view is of the budget and what you're trying to achieve. So the most successful Nigerian movie on Netflix, is everybody knows, is Black Book. But what most people don't know is that the second most successful film is Tokumbo. And Tokumbo was made at a fraction of the budget of Black Book. Now, the interesting thing about Tokumbo is distribution, right? So, if you like action films from Nigeria and you like Black Book, you are likely to be served Tokumbo because it's an action film, similar vein, etc., etc. So, the thing that drives outside success, that enables our budgets to compete, is distribution. It is nice for us to say that we want one, turn it down. I mean, I want, please give me, I'm looking for money. But you need a distribution architecture that can hold for it. So if you are doing global distribution directly, you are running into global output deals that can take that budget. So of course you have to meet those expectations because most global deals have a minimum budget requirement. So let us say you're lucky to sign a deal with Sony Pictures for a Nigerian film. Those Sony deals feed into their Netflix Pay One deal, right? But that Netflix Pay One deal has a minimum budget requirement. It also has the extra requirements overseas, etc., etc. So let us say you were trying to get that acquired, you have to spend $3 to $5 million. But you're rolling a very interesting dice. If they don't pick it up, you are back with us in Nigeria, and we will welcome you and look at your $5 million and say, thank you very much, go and dance for us on social media. So it's a function of where you play. But the other thing is this: who is your market? I think Michael mentioned India, and somebody mentioned that India did 100, 150 million in US box office. That's great, but the Indian box office is $1 billion. So their entire US gross is 10 to 50% of their overall. SRK does not care about the US because 90% of its budget happens in country. The only thing that people need to remember is the people that care about your content is your audience. Yes, Nigerian content can travel. We want it to travel. We want the Brazilians, we want the Romanians, we want the Ukrainians to watch it. But if you cannot get a significant portion of the 200 odd Nigerians to watch it and monetize it, you will always be a niche player. You have to monetize for the people that your content matters to uniquely. And the only way that works is how you get to spending $2 million per title. That's the only way.
Right. So total agreement there. Total agreement there. So the last question on the budget.
We want $2 million, so please.
We will get it.
No, it's interesting. I think it's just perspective. I think, obviously, you're so experienced in the Nollywood industry. I think at Native, we've typically made things, even with our music, we want to just appeal to, again, I think it's a music mindset. We're making things from day one being like, we're British people like this, we're American people like this. So I guess one, what do you guys call, like genre agnostic in a way, or like one, so I think it's just, and I was going to make the point earlier when you spoke about success. I think the actual biggest determinant for success is where does your film slate sit within your overall picture portfolio? For us, our film department is part of our wider portfolio of investments, which is our music business, our live events business, and things like that. So I think we can take certain decisions that don't make, because it doesn't make up all of our revenue as a company. So I think that determines how we take on projects, how we're trying to sell those projects. To your point of, oh, if you make a film and you can't sell it internationally and you come back here, we just wouldn't sell it here. We're just like, cool, we know that it's not for this audience because we know how we made it. But I think if, like, you build an incredible company, a lot of people here build incredible companies telling Nigerian stories for global audiences, there's already a backstop of, cool, no matter what, we have an audience here to sell it to that will go and buy this film, go and watch the film, go and stream it. So I do think, that's the difference.
Last one on the budget. Landry, this is for you. There's one thing that we've spoken about here, and even on the first panel, we're talking about structure, and that's something that Nollywood still hasn't gotten yet. Do you think that sometimes we overspend without clear return logic?
So, like I said, I just arrived. So the way
this you arrived.
Yeah. So, Honorable is my most expensive film yet. It's my 10th film, but it's my first cinema film. And I remember wanting to do the premiere and saying, we are not going to go above this amount no matter what. I think that regardless of how many elites we have in Nigeria, for the cinema business, the life of the common man will still find a way to reflect in the way ticket prices are. If you have a friend in tech, their money is blood money. But if you look at, someone released a report earlier this year, the entire Nigerian movie industry made, I think, 15 billion last year from cinemas. They said West Africa, but you guys know Nigeria is like 90%, then Ghana 10. It's 50. If you speak to people in tech, those numbers don't really do anything for them. So I think that we kind of need to, I'm not saying we should limit ourselves, but there's a song by a Nigerian philosopher, always go to your clothes according to your size. I think that we need to understand the dynamics of the market while doing our best to play for the global audience. They've done bigger budget films than I have, so I'll probably be speaking to maybe a younger filmmaker who's just starting out. But I think that we should, as much as possible, invest money in the things that make money. When we wanted to take Honorable to cinemas, I knew why I chose March. Because, like I said, I just arrived. I won't go to December. You understand? So I think really understanding where you are and then how to sell to your audience. And because I've done courses before, online courses, there's this thing anybody who's done courses knows. It's called pre-orders, where people will actually pay you a month in advance, and they pay you because they trust you. They haven't seen the course. You haven't even created the course. And so what we did was we started taking pre-orders from, the film was coming out in March, so we started taking pre-orders from January and announced the film in December. And so we spoke to 10 top cinemas, because if you look at that from one report again, 15 billion made in West Africa or in Nigeria, Lagos was responsible for half of that. Between ICM and Ebony Life, they had about 3 billion between them. I just arrived. I need to figure out how do I spend my marketing budget in a way that works for me. Where's my audience? Do you understand? So what we now did was, okay, these are the top 10 cinemas. 6 of them were in Lagos. We contacted them. We want people to be able to pre-order this. We want people to be able to pay ahead of time, because I'm not going to spend money in marketing and not know. I won't wait until March. I can't be advertising from January. I'll now wait until March. Will they come out? Will they not come out? If I get them to pre-order this, when the film comes out, they will come out. And so we were able to do pre-orders for what came to, I think we did, the figures we did, the last figures we mentioned are about 100 million. And now I think we're at 134.5 as of today. But we're able to do a fraction of that before we even got into cinemas. So I think just really understanding where you are, what works for you, what works for your audience, and ensuring that we take a business approach to film as opposed to simply a film approach to film. I think that one is so important. And then spending on what matters. I think that that's important.
I'm going to put you there.
Yes.
I'm going to move it to the next question.
Okay. I'll just say one more thing.
Yeah, finish.
I'll just say one more thing. So let me move to your next question.
So you spoke about spending on what matters. The next topic of conversation we're going to talk about is resource allocation, right? What deserves the biggest share when it comes to filmmaking? Is it talent? Is it production? Or is it marketing?
From my experience, not your premiere.
Okay, all right.
Even if a brand is funding it, use half the money. That's what I think.
Okay.
Use half the money. Sorry, I'm thinking upcoming people like me. So by the time my last come, they'll give you a more.
Okay.
So definitely not your premiere. Definitely not your personal expenditure. I've been working on this film over a year. I haven't paid myself.
Okay.
God, when do we get to spend the money? Right? I think that production definitely matters.
Okay.
But I also think, because there are two things I do for film. I'm a writer and a producer. I don't direct. So when I'm writing, I'm already thinking, I will write aeroplane if I don't have aeroplane budget. But if you employ a writer, they can write aeroplane for you. They will write South Africa and Russia. So, and 3 parties. And we all know that even a small party is a full day of shoots. It's all gone. So I think we really need to start from scripting. And when I say from scripting, I don't mean when you're paying script writer. I'm sure that I have not paid myself, thank God, for being a Nepo wife.
Pay yourself.
But the thing is, I'm a Nepo wife, so sorry, that's my doing. So definitely, I would say production, yes. But I believe in calling in favors. If I know someone who has an office I can use, I'm going to call them, please, can I use your office? But it also goes down to just really building relationships around you. Because it's not only film people that are relevant for film. When I was doing meet and greet for my film, I would call a speaker to a friend, right? So I think just really figuring out what can my network bring to me? What don't I necessarily have to pay for? But also really fostering relationships so that you are paying for something in kind and not straight in cash. But great production, yes. Talent, yes. But also I think you'll be able to save more if that's your goal. If you have $1 million and you're willing to spend it and you have a 2 million, 3 million, but if you're trying to save, I think you should definitely start from scripting. Because for the average Nigerian market, if you have a good story and you have great actors, you are good. That's what I think.
All right, Naz, what deserves the biggest share? Talent, production, or marketing?
It depends. There's never one answer. A lot of this is full of nuance. It also depends on what the project is, what you're trying to achieve. But I think when you take a step back, you have to accept that every project is different, and not every project does the same thing. One of the things that we all have to accept in film is that the majority of the projects that move the industry forward, so to speak, lose money. So somebody is effectively donating and paying it forward for the industry. So from a company standpoint, you don't want to lose money on any individual film, but you should generally accept that you will lose money on individual films. It's your slate that you should be looking at. The winners cover the losers, etc., etc. And so for individual films, it depends. So for when we did Muri and Co, almost all the money was the production days because we had to shoot in a car on the road. I saw here too. So basically, that one takes a lot of budget. When we did Wedding Party 1, we were in a co-hotel. That location took a lot of budget. When we did Wedding Party 2, we went to Dubai. Don't go to Dubai. It's a Nigerian film. But the point is, everything is different. Some things is talent. To get RMG on Palava was a large part of our budget, but we knew you're doing an aging rock star, you need somebody like that. So every film, every series, everything is different. I think the more important thing is, what does this project need? And if a film needs 30 days and you do it in 20, you may succeed, you may not. If a film needs a big star and you get me, you are taking a risk, you may not. So you have to take a view of every film. And maybe your film does need 3 parties. Maybe your film needs an aeroplane. So up north, we needed an aeroplane because we needed to show Banky was rich. We could not afford an aeroplane. So we went to look for the person who was there. So we had Banky walk down from the aeroplane, right? That was parked. Japa, we needed an aeroplane. Arik had a plane that was stored. But those scenes in those movies needed aeroplanes. So that's where producers come in. How do you make your budget work for your ambition? Yeah. I just want to close that. You are in filmmaking because you're trying to make ambitious things. Yeah. The thing that I always tell people is, do not let the focus on financing curtail your ambition. That's how film dies.
I totally agree.
So that's honestly
I agree. So to round up this question, next one, just generally everyone chip in 1 minute. We have spoken here about the importance, and I just asked the question when I said, what's the biggest share? Talent, production. It sounds like everyone knows it's production, right? I want to know, do you think we are underinvesting in post-production and distribution?
Underinvesting?
Yes, underinvesting.
No, I feel like everyone I speak to, everyone understands how important post-production is.
Are you sure? The reason why I'm saying that is, again, I think everybody does, but I'm just simply asking because, again, there's certain people that shoot X amount of money, a film for X amount of money, right? Let's say a low budget, for example.
Right.
However, some of them would shoot a low budget film and then spend way more money in post-production, while for some people it's the direct opposite. Do you see what I'm saying?
No, yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think everyone understands the importance of post-production. Like, I think everyone's saying, when you go into it at the beginning, you have all these plans of, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do post in this place, but linking back to the last question, I think producers need to produce. Like, it's all about problem solving while you're making the film.
Yeah.
And I think post-production is the biggest problem to solve because, you film everything and then you have this massive block of footage that you have to make work. But for me, again, it goes back to, I think Naz mentioned this, what's the goal of the film? Where do you want it to go? Because that, to me, that dictates post-production more than anything. Okay. Where do you intend on it landing? And I think that dictates how you're doing post-production, where you're doing post-production, how much time you're spending on it, and how much attention to detail you're taking on it. I think a lot of films, a lot of scripted films, especially ones that are trying to go into the cinema, have a very clear idea of, we need to be in the cinema by X date, which then puts pressure on your post-production. Yeah. So I think for me, you really want to create the best environment to serve the film. But I think the film is always king.
Okay, I agree with you. Now, you've done films across pretty much almost every sector possible right now, at least in the industry, right? Streaming, cover, and then cinema. What's your take on it, especially when it comes to the distribution side of things?
So, distribution is what makes our business possible. Getting people to pay you money in whatever shape or form is what enables film and television to work. It's a derived business. You either get money from subscriptions, you get money from ads, you get money from brand placements. Somebody has to see value in the work you create and pay you. So when you look at the cinemas, right, as Laju mentioned, the total cinema box office in Nigeria was less than $10 million. The Nollywood share of that budget was half that, so that's $5 million. The producer gets a third of that, give or take, so that is roughly $1.5 to $1.6 million. that comes back to the producer from cinemas. You have to take a look at the fact that if Nigeria is making 2,000 films, 3,000 films, cinema is not the driver of the overall return. So distribution has to be broader than just one avenue, and every film has to use the available distribution to it to make money. If you're doing YouTube as well, you know that a Nigerian film gets what? $2, $3, $4 per 1,000 views. That tells you that if your average is 1 million, 3 million, 5 million, your total return is what, 10K to 15K. That informs how much you invest. Every distribution channel has its own logic, and a producer and a productions company's job is to understand that logic, basically.
Great. All right, so we're kind of pressed for time, so I'm going to ask the last general question. Everyone, 1 minute, and we move straight into the audience. This is in relation to global or local. Do you think we need bigger budgets to go global or better storytelling? And if we do, then should that start from development?
Let me go first.
1 minute.
So I wanted to touch on distribution for a reason.
One minute.
Yes, I will touch on distribution, then they can speak on the others.
All right.
When I first started filmmaking, Prime offered me an amount for my film Loving Amanda that barely covered my budget. And I needed to find another way to make the money back. And so we started this thing called a virtual cinema in 2022, where we got people to pay us directly, but instead of building a streaming platform, we paid the platform just for a short period of time. And what that meant was that this isn't really an industry that does direct to consumer, but we're able to do direct to consumer with that without worrying about, I think that's why Daddy wanted me to be on the panel, without worrying about the overhead cost of consistently building a streaming platform. We do need more opportunities for distribution. That's given. I think one of the reasons why we had a lot of films in cinemas this period was there were some films that had been made a while back that were waiting for streamers. And we all know what happened with streamers. I won't go into detail into that, because you had streamers who were taking 100 films coming and saying, we'll take 2. So I think that we really need, I think rooms like this are great places to talk about more opportunities for distribution beyond the streaming platforms that we have. Thank God for Kava. Beyond those streaming platforms, I think we really need more avenues, so that we are not just, many people want to invest in the industry and invest in the filmmaker, but if the filmmaker doesn't really have many opportunities to sell their film, that becomes a problem. There's a platform I'm working with immediately after my cinema run called Film Ports. And what they do is they power virtual cinemas. So I think we really need to look more into that, and I think that this is the right room for us to have those avenues where even if the filmmaker is not a very well-known filmmaker, if they have a community, they can distribute to that community. Thank you.
Thank you. So Naz, do you want me to ask the question again?
Can you repeat the question? Yes, please.
Okay. So I said when it comes to global and local, I said, do we need bigger budgets to go global or better storytelling? And do you think that it needs to start from development? I mean, the answer is obvious, but please go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it's about bigger budgets. I think the storytelling needs to start from the very beginning. I think how is this going to be consumed by, even if you want to forget, the Western world, even if you just want to get to the diaspora, like start there, like if you don't want to shoot too far. But I think from the very beginning we need to develop those stories that we think will be consumed by a global audience, 100%.
Okay, Naz, do you want to take anything before we go to the question?
What does better mean? Bollywood films that broke into America, right? The Indian form of storytelling is very different from the American form of storytelling, very different from the Korean form of storytelling. I struggle with better because it's very audience dependent. There's a very, I forget the name of the film, it was a Lindsay Lohan film that it was Irish involved in some way, I forget the name. And it's a rom-com, and it was so bad. I was very surprised, but they actually asked him that. His response was, bad too. Because it had one of the highest completions of a rom-com that year. Now, if you know anything about streaming, that is their way to go. The people who wanted to watch it finish it, right? And so, one of the things that I find fascinating is when you do audience surveys about the things that matter to them, you will be very surprised like as to the things that matter to them. And I always, I'm either in Surulere, I'm in Ikeja, watching the audience watch the film. And you will understand the things that matter to them and not necessarily the things that matter to you.
Totally agree.
So my sense is, but I don't know what that means.
Thank you very much. That was great. We're going to go straight into questions.
So we're going to the audience. Please, 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 let us know your name and just go straight with the question. Thank you very much. All right, do you have any questions? Raise your hand up and we have about 2 roving mics. We don't have any questions from the audience? Okay, 2 gentlemen in the back. Well, the other gentleman first.
It's going to rub a few feathers, but I guess that's okay. Okay, can you hear me clearly now? Okay, so my question is this. I think from my limited experience, filmmakers often treat their projects as fast food, right? It's for immediate consumption. And I'm so happy that you mentioned thinking more broadly around distribution. But is there a reason? Is it structural? Is it infrastructural? I'm interested in learning why you don't think of leveraging virtual cinemas for the physical cinema or that cinema infrastructure layer, right? When you're thinking about distribution, why are you thinking about selling rights to a distributor that has maybe coverage in Nigeria and Ghana, and then leveraging virtual cinema for the other places where you don't have the distribution capabilities within the country? Thank
you. Pay me a minimum guarantee. So that proves you believe in your market. We talked about Indian cinema a while ago. Indian cinema only works here because the Indian distributors say, we don't know your market, pay a minimum guarantee. The only reason why you have Indian cinema here is because Indians in Nigeria contribute to pay the minimum guarantee. No distributor pays it. But you can't take the view that it is the producer's job to solve the ecosystem. We make the film, we market for the distributor, we market for the cinema. Now we are the ones that should figure out distribution for a platform that we don't own equity in. Make it make sense. If you are a distributor that you want to develop virtual cinema, go raise $5-10 million, go spend your marketing, and prove to the cinema owner that you are a viable competitor to them, and prove to the producer that you are a valuable outlet for them. When streaming came here, they did not say take it on faith. They pay whatever their definition of value was. The first streaming deals in Nigeria in 2019 were very poor. Anybody in the industry remembers that we were all crying. All the films that we had back home for 3 years, we were selling them for, 20% of what they were worth 2 years later. But they were saying that this is what we thought the value was. And they made an offer, we accepted, and the value grew over time. But it was, the onus is on the platform to demonstrate value to the producer, not on the producer to take a chance on the platform, basically.
Yes. Do we have another question? Tell us your name and just very quickly go with the question. Thank you.
Yeah, my question. Do you think that sometimes the audience don't know what they want? Like Steve Jobs said when he was alive, he said, sometimes people don't know what they want until they get it. So do you not think that people have an expectation of what they already know, and if you feed them something different, they will actually catch up? Because when you say they should sit and look at what the audience wants, it puts them in a box, thinking this is what the audience wants, based on what they are used to, in comparison to what they can actually get when it gets to quality.
Art, film, music, you'll be crazy not to listen to your audience, but you still have to follow yourself. You're making something at the end of the day. I think, yes, we're in this film financing conference, but this is financing an art. At the end of the day, we are financing the ability to make like a real creative thing. So you can't be too straight about the audience, but you can't ignore the audience either.
So can I just say something, right? The third film I made was a film called Arbitration. Hey, Yuriti. So if you know what arbitration was, it was literally 4 people in a room arguing about whether rape was sexual assault under a client arbitration employment clause. If you asked any member of the Nigerian audience prior to that film, is that interesting to you? The answer would have been no. As a filmmaker, your job is to make what you want. The issue is that the audience doesn't have to agree with you that that's what they want. But when we made Arbitration, we did funky stuff, there was sex, there was this, there was that, but it was a story we wanted to tell. Not every film is Wedding Party. Not every filmmaker wants to make Wedding Party. But the idea is that, yes, I believe as a filmmaker that what I want to say, the audience wants to agree to watch. But the audience may not agree. And so it is not that the audience feels a certain way. When we made Far From Home, there were no big budget YA things in the market, right? We pitched it to Netflix, Netflix agreed, we made it. The audience decided that they wanted it. But they could easily have decided that they didn't want it. But I think that there's an idea that a filmmaker is the only arbiter of a film. I am the arbiter as I choose to make it. Once it goes out into the world, it belongs to the audience. It belongs to the critics, the filmmakers that are your colleagues who are abusing the film in the WhatsApp groups. It belongs to the audience. It belongs to everybody. So I don't think that people should fixate on quality. Because my favorite example of this is Kwam's Money. We made Kwam's Money in 2020. We shot it during COVID, etc., etc. When it came out in Nigeria, people liked it, didn't like it, blah, blah, blah. It was mixed reviews. The New York Times, when it went on Netflix, wrote a review about it that was very glowing. Now, if you're a Nigerian critic, do you change your view because the New York Times like it, or do you say they don't know what they're talking about? What is better? We thought that film was important for us to make, so we made it. Quality is in the eye of the beholder, is not a controversial term. I just don't have to agree with you. If you think it's bad and I think it's good, let's agree to disagree. It's not a fight that your version of quality must be my own. Nobody is saying that your version is wrong. You are right, you don't like the film, but that person likes it. My favorite example of this, and I'm telling stories. So, my father was ill a few years back, and he was in the hospital. And my mother was there with him, and 5 of her friends came to see her. She's a Yoruba woman, as they do, and so they were just talking in Yoruba. And it came on about, oh, there's a film on Netflix, have you seen it? The film was Chief Daddy. They spent 30 minutes discussing Chief Daddy, how it mattered to them. They were laughing about it. My mother, who went from being super worried about my dad, for the 30 minutes was discussing and enjoying that story. And the thing is this, you cannot buy that experience. No matter what you think about Chief Daddy. Chief Daddy was probably one of the most important things to my mom that year. And that's what quality is. It is very specific. There is no magical, this is quality. And I'll leave it there.
Sorry, what platform is application?
Sorry?
What platform is application?
It's currently on Cover. So please subscribe to Cover. It was on Netflix for a very long time, but it's currently on Cover. Wana? Hey.
Hi. Thank you all so much. I think that brings us to an end of this session. I'm hoping that it was very informative. Thank you so much to my amazing panelists. And thank you to everyone.
Thank you to Abimbola for sharing and really curator. She's a filmmaker, a curator, founder of Raconteur Productions. She's working at the intersection of storytelling and industry development, and some of her credits include I Did Not Come to You by Chance, The Legend of the Vagabond Queen of Lagos. She's also an EAB fellow, and she's consulted for so many projects, so many organizations, from British Council to UNDP to Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, a roaring applause for Chioma Onyewu. You have to dance online these days, you know, so better start dancing. All right, our first panelist, I'm going to invite Nora, our storyteller. She has done so much incredible work. If you know Nora, you know all the work she's done. But I think something that stands out at the moment for everybody is Red Circle. She is, of course, executive producer of that. I'd also like to invite Isioma Idigbe to the stage. Is she here? And Isioma is partner at Ernie's Solicitors, where she heads its media and entertainment, IP and technology practice. Aside her law practice, Isioma is also the founder and director of Varied Content, a due diligence checks company on intellectual property in Nigeria. Thank you, Isioma. And finally, we would like to invite Chuka Ejo, who has over 20 years experience working on award-winning feature films, TV shows, drama series, documentaries, commercials from Lagos to South Africa to everywhere around the world, and he's also the founder and CEO of Link Studios Limited. Welcome, Chioma. All right, Chioma, take it away.
Thank you, Anna, for a great introduction. Yeah, we'll just get right into it. I think we're here because MBO Capital invests a lot of money in film, right? They've invested over $9 billion or plus or counting, and we all invest a lot of money as filmmakers. And so the thing is there an infrastructure now to protect and multiply this investment? And as we're seeking further investment locally and globally, what can we do to kind of protect that? You know, so I think in talking about infrastructure, we tend to highlight challenges, but these are also opportunities. I mean, we can see that there's a refinery now. So it was a challenge before, and now it's an opportunity. So this is what we're hoping to kind of gain with the panel and this discussion. So I'm going to start with Chuka, and what are we improvising against? That we shouldn't be improvising. You know, you also have to deliver to global streamers. So, where is the gap? Let's start there.
Well, I'm trying to think where to start from. The gap, I would say, everything centers around what we're talking about, just structure. I'm trying to think where to start from. I will start from anywhere because they all really lead to the same place. Essentially, yeah, we do not in Nigeria, just very, very truthfully, do not have proper post-production capabilities for international delivery. Now, of course, we can talk about why don't we have that. It really just goes down to all the other things we've spoken about in the other panels. Why do you want to invest in something that you're not going to get your ROI, like they were saying, right? But then, why don't we have it so that we can create content and deliver and get distributed internationally for better ROI? So it's I guess a chicken and egg situation, and just determining at what point do we want to, what do we want to invest in at this time, and what do we want to push to later time, with a steady intentionality to that growth. The biggest challenge I will start with is just the human resource challenge. Yeah, we can have all the equipment, even with the camera situation, you can have all the equipment, yeah, you still need to have individuals, a number of individuals that can execute on a certain level, right? And so we have a lot of content. You have to, at many times, make a decision on primarily based on the budget. We can't afford to have this person, so we might have to go a lower tier, have this other person handle it, a lower tier, have this other equipment handle it to fit into the budget. So it's a chicken and egg situation. Basically, it's a general structure challenge. I'll just give one example. Last week, 2 weeks ago, there was a particular client. They came from New York to film something in Nigeria. We had this particular equipment here to handle the dailies, so everything they filmed each day, here to handle it and archive it. There are 2 other companies in Nigeria that have that equipment as well. Yeah, for some reason, we had a particular challenge with then archiving those files because of our equipment. But then you have to send it to the manufacturers in Europe, which will take a few weeks to fix and send back, right? The other 2 companies that have that equipment had issues with their equipment as well. And so in Nigeria, we couldn't deliver that. Now, the other option was to archive it on the cloud. That is infrastructure as well. How many places do you have where you can upload files at a very high speed? Now, we have fast internet, it's just not even as fast to handle a large scale project. So again, it's a chicken and egg situation. You choose at different times what you invest in. As Link Studios now, yeah, because I need to know, I can't go and invest in the high tech equipment when 98% of the projects that are then coming to me don't require it, because they really just want to do something that is going to come out quickly and they can make their return on investment.
But for post-production specifically, isn't there a way to build, we'll get into the challenges with like location and facilities, but for post-production specifically, is there a way to build comparative advantage? Like in India, for example, we're talking about it and building like a VFX farm there. So for something that requires, maybe an Andela model, is that something you've thought about? Like where if you create the facilities that people could come here?
We have different ideas. A number of them have failed, just again because really the infrastructural challenges we have in Nigeria. Now you talk about the data farms, right? There's also then a need for very, very steady, just internet, because you need certain people to access certain things. So you can then go and buy all the computers here for the interconnectivity and for certain just power, for certain levels of just stability. Yet there is further investment that then needs to happen. Yeah, and so it has to be a concerted effort, where we have to have more post-production facilities in Nigeria. We don't have many now I can talk, we're a post-production company, but an industry we need to have even more for just that industry, feeling and, structured feeling with delivery.
Thank you. Nora, I'm going to come to you now because you shot, she wears two different hats as a cinematographer and as a producer, and she shot films on different scales. Like she was cinematographer on Lisabi, which was a scrolling epic, and also Red Circle. So as a cinematographer now, like what would you say are the infrastructural gaps on the Nigerian sets? And is it like equipment? Is it facilities? I know we're always talking about like building film villages. So like what is on for you on a day-to-day? What would you say are the gaps?
I think it's everything. I think it's just encompasses everything. And first of all, prep time. The amount of days we're using to shoot blockbuster films now shocks me. And you understand too as a producer. Shooting films 10 days, 12 days, 14 days. There is no way your creativity is going to come into play in that time. That's one of the first things first. We don't even do dev shoots. How many producers can afford to do it? Like you get your artists and actors on board, they do makeup tests, they film. I remember when Sinner's makeup shoots came out and 10 shoots and Nigerians were raving about it, and I was just like, bro, you can't even afford to do that. There is that. I also say something as a cinematographer that you can only push as far as there's the Aguero. There is just so many things that just limit you. So I don't know, the whole country as a whole.
I think, well, I guess that would be like a through line, right? Like, because you're always trying to build in spite of the country that we have. So whether it's power, whether it's internet, whether it's security, how can we kind of build infrastructure knowing that Nollywood is based in Nigeria, so we can't remove the industry from the realities of the country. So in terms of now like building this, Isioma, I'm coming to you now, like for the investors, for the government representatives in the room, like who should build this infrastructure? Like who should own it? We're talking, and who, I guess because you're also doing a lot of consulting with the governments and with the ministry, so and with what I guess international financiers, and it's always about like infrastructure. So who should build it? Who should have access to it? Who should own it?
Hello. Okay. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I'm very happy that we're having this panel because I'm actually tired of having panels about film financing, because I always say that money follows markets, and we don't have a film industry. I will say that any day, any time. We have a film community. So that's the first thing. And when we look at the issue of infrastructure, we're always looking at hard things like post-production facilities, equipment. But infrastructure to me is much deeper than that. It's also even how we work as a community. I'll stick with that language. What are our contracting terms? What is our regulation like? Do we effectively self-regulate? Because you don't need, I don't think our issue is money. I think money is a symptom of the wider infrastructure gaps that we have, which I would classify them into soft and hard. So when I say soft, that's what I'm talking about. How do we self-regulate? What are the service standards? What are the service terms? Those basic things that you have in other more developed markets where they've escalated from a community into a market. What are our guilds doing? Just at a basic level, So even if we don't have so much money to play with, how are we able to work together to get the best out of that? So those are our soft infrastructures that are lacking, and that slowly rests within the remit of the industry to organize itself to be more efficient, even with the societal and the country limitations that you have. Because to be honest with you, some of these wider issues of security and that, when you were talking about needing to fix something, the other day I was flying on IBOM Air, and IBOM is known to be extremely efficient. All of a sudden, a 3 p.m. flight, I didn't leave Lagos till 9 p.m. And it's not because they don't want to do the best. It was because of an equipment issue, because we don't maintain planes in Nigeria. You understand what I mean? So it's touching every sector. But we can deal with the soft infrastructure, and we must deal with it whilst we're waiting for the hard infrastructure to come in. Now, when we talk about the hard infrastructure, as far as I'm concerned, we need to first build a marketplace. That means that when I make content, I need to be able to make that money back. That is the fundamental infrastructure first. And how do we do that? Cinemas. A cinema revolution is what we need. When we've been talking about India, and I'm very happy that we're referencing India, because honestly, there's nothing new under the sun. We really should be actively trying to replicate the Indian model. And when you look at the Indian model, when all the streamers left India, they didn't care, because they're already making a killing from their community cinema system. So you need a proper structure where I can make content and I can get true value for that content back. And that involves the government, because that is a huge capital outlay. It's not just going to be MBO or anybody else that will put that money out. Why should MBO put that money out? Who is going to give them the guarantee to spend that kind of money? It's the government. And how can the government do that? One, the government can put money on the table for things like that, and they should. They can also make it more cost-effective for an MBO capital to fund through things like tax credits, right? Now, thank God, we actually have them in our tax laws. If you go through it, it's there. But it's one thing to have it in this very bulky tax law. It's another thing to now divvy it down into implementation. And that's what they are working on. It takes time. The wheels of government turn very slowly. But again, because our soft infrastructure is weak, we're not even able to hold them accountable effectively. And I'll use music in Nigeria to contrast it for you. So apart from all the work I do in film, I do a lot of work in music. And one of my big clients, one of the biggest record labels in the world, when we're bringing them into market, one of the things I told them was that the only way they were going to monetize was if they worked on all this soft infrastructure that I talk about, making people understand how the music business should work, setting up trade associations and things like that. And you will be shocked how effective and how powerful those trade associations. If you've been watching the news, you've been hearing about MCSN, RELP, all of those things. There are even things that music people are pushing that film people are going to benefit from because they are organized. You have people like Maven, Sony, Warner, Chocolate City, all competitors working in one trade association for common goals. And so they can hold the same Ministry of Culture that we all share accountable, and they are going to get results, some of which we'll start hearing soon. So again, even if the government can do, they can be well-intentioned and they want to do it. When our soft infrastructure is not organized, there's nobody nobody to hold them accountable to the things that they say that they are going to do. And I've been in rooms where people from this industry, when they have an opportunity to talk to government, they go for their own selfish thing that they want, that makes absolutely no sense, and is actually self-destructive when you think about it, play it forward a couple of years forward. So to me, those are really the issues. When we're talking about those, in fact, when you have a cinema revolution, then your business starts to make sense because there's now real volume. Every other thing will follow, post-production will follow, film studios will follow, all those things will follow because money follows markets. Thank you.
Thanks, Tiara, that was great. And I think like what she said in terms of like referencing one tax credits is how, I guess in Brazil and other like international countries, how they fund their film funds and their
environments. You learn how to work with other people. You learn how to report on the thing you're working on, not working in silos. So we have a lot of talented people working in silos. It doesn't help anything because you're only going to be able to do something on a small scale. For us to do things on a larger scale, we need then these talented people, which there's no shortage of, to learn to work with other talented people, learn to work with the suits, the corporates, learn to work in environments that it is not, your talent, honestly, is not that important. Yeah, what is most important is being able to execute on the thing you need to do your part to make sure that the larger picture is achieved. Yeah, and that's the thing about filmmaking, right? Everyone collaborates. Collaboration is a thing we're not very conversant with here. So that's what I'm very passionate about, just especially those soft infrastructure and gaps. Just the talent is there, just direct that talent, just hone that talent. Get mentors from outside of Nigeria, from in Nigeria, to work with these young talents to help them to hone those skills. Now again, we talk about India as well, and I'll touch a little on this thing as well. What I think we also need to do here is bring projects into Nigeria so that you then have more people who can then be attached to those projects and gain their skills. What happens a lot is we take them out of Nigeria. Now one person would probably get to go and further their skill. What does that do for the industry as a whole? It's one person. But if you bring it to Nigeria, you can then attach 20 people on certain levels. You grow it, on a much, more intentional, scale. So that is something I think is very important. The Indian industry, the South African industry, it was because there were a number of years of Hollywood doing productions in Cape Town, in Johannesburg. Now South Africans are known to be very, very technically astute. It's not because it just came from nowhere. There were a number of years of them just constantly being exposed to a certain way of working. That's something that I think we need to do now, be more intentional about bringing projects into Nigeria so that other people, and we don't work in silos, so other people can get to benefit from it.
I mean, it still kind of goes hand in hand with still building professionalism first, because I don't know if there's any filmmaker here who didn't have to kidnap their editor and lock him in a house. Because if you didn't bring the guy and put him somewhere where you can see him 24 hours, you're never going to get your stuff on time. So you have to kind of build that soft skill of professionalism and then tie it into the talent that you said. And Laura, to you now, I think, because you're talking about a process where you can grow a community of people or a group of people, or an industry of people is your mother. But you're self-taught as a cinematographer, so you learned from YouTube, you said, and interning on sets, but now you've shot for Netflix and FIFA, and your first feature as a producer grossed over 100 million. So are we is your story proof that the informal pipeline works? Or are you saying, based on your experience, do you wish there's a more formal structure that you could have ascribed to do what you're doing today?
Thank you. First of all, I don't think it works. I don't think it's scalable. Work with your friends, but I keep saying that the And industry that doesn't have pipeline to grow does not work. You can't come to an industry and say, I came as a camera assistant, then from there I became a first AC, from there I kept learning and learning. It just feels like the proximity you have and the access you have just helps you scale. And that does not work. I don't think an industry that is ready to grow should grow like that. We need more formal skills. So every time I see master classes these days, saying, oh, we are training 300 people, we are training this, are you going to give them work? Where's the work? Where is the work? Because I keep telling people and I say, okay, you are getting a girl and saying I want to train 300 women in cinematography, blah, blah, blah. And tomorrow, after this training, 5 days masterclass, they are not on set, they are not working. If makeup is paying them, they'll go and do makeup because people have bills to pay. This way that we are approaching the industry of just jumping, a friend, I mean, it's nice, it's a good story to sell, aspire to perspire, but it is not a way to scale an industry. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Yeah, so we need also, I guess, formal training, institutionalized training. And so I'm coming back to you, Isioma, because I guess with everything is still around, like, how do we sustain, right? So, I mean, we've talked about, you said that piracy is a distribution infrastructure problem, right? And that there's demand, but then there's no supply. So, and that if distribution infrastructure catches up, so right now, so if distribution, I mean, there are streaming platforms, there are people setting up cinemas and virtual cinemas, so in trying to catch up to solve the supply problem, right? Do we have legal, do we have institutional systems to now say track royalties, residuals? So I guess, what ties it all up is that at the end of the day, with our films and with what we're creating, you said it's a market problem, right? But how do we ensure that we're continually earning from these things? And so for royalties and residuals, like what's missing institutionally to set that up?
Thank you. So again, back to this hard and soft. Both, there are gaps in both. So when you look at more developed markets where they have these royalty systems, you find out that they are based on contracts. And these are not just personal one-on-one contracts between one producer and one actor or cinematographer. It's between guilds representing categories of workers within the industry and the producers. So the first thing is, what is the contractual basis for this issue of back-end and royalties and whatnot? We don't have it. And that is even the easiest thing we can solve if the industry decides to fix their soft infrastructure problem. That's the first thing. Now, on the hard side, and if you look at in the UK, for example, with their Ofcom regulations, where when you look at how Ofcom have template agreements, commissioning agreements between broadcasters and producers. So even when we talk about film, please, I'm including television in this because one of the reasons why we don't have a film industry is because our television space is dead, is derelict. So the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission has a huge role to play on the hard infrastructure side. And just so we understand how our regulation works, that agency is not under the Ministry of Creative Economy. That is an agency under the Ministry of Information. So that there's a reason I mentioned that, and I will circle back to that later. But let me go. So in the commissioning agreements under the British Ofcom regulation, they actually give the rights to the producer. And the commissioner essentially only has rights over for their own platform. Do you understand? And then the other rights they have is to share royalties from the producer's share. I don't want to mention a particular platform because I will get sued, but a very popular platform in Nigeria that is probably the highest commissioning platform in Nigeria does not pay any royalties or back end. Their contracts, they own all rights. They've had extreme, I'm looking at one of the actors from one of their very successful shows, and I don't want to ask you whether or not you're earning royalties. Do you understand what I mean? The people who created those shows should be multi-billionaires in Nigeria right now. If things like Friends, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, they are still generating revenue today. And that is being allowed under the laws of Nigeria. Now, when the NBC code was revised earlier, when they had that language about channel exclusivity, what people in the film industry didn't know was that that was actually a leg in for producers. But because our people, again, that's why I keep saying it, we don't have an industry, we have a community. Because when you have an industry, you understand how you're supposed to make money, right? Now, people from the industry were shouting, how can you tell me what I should do with my rights? No, you don't want exclusivity. They didn't understand what that, in fact, I felt that NBC didn't go far enough. Because as far as I'm concerned, if I produce something, even if you commission it, it's my idea. I should own it. And the law should support that. Now understand, our copyright law in Nigeria, right, it allows you to assign all your rights except your moral rights. And what moral right is more about the right to attribution. So, for example, if I'm a core Christian and I wrote a story and they go and change it to something that does not align with my Christian values, on the basis of my moral rights, I can actually walk away from an agreement. But that doesn't come down to monetization, right? So if we had a broadcasting code that insisted that producers must have a share of the money, then even from a financier's point of view, it starts to get interesting. So when we look at some of our very popular shows that we've had, I'm really trying very hard not to mention names. Let's imagine that MBO Capital had invested in this particular show. I know everybody knows the show I'm talking about, right? Okay? Let's say MBO Capital had invested in this particular show, and the producer owned the rights. And when Netflix and Amazon came, this show has maybe over 5,000 episodes, and they sold it to Netflix at maybe $10,000 per episode. I mean, everybody did the maths. Even if they shared it 70-30 with the original commissioner, everybody will walk away happy. Not only will everybody walk away happy, you will now reintroduce this content to new audiences, which gives that same creator the opportunity to create even more stuff. Because you're building an audience for them. It's actually, when I talk like this, is because I'm totally frustrated with the fact that we see these things. I'm not talking about things that don't exist. Google is your friend. You can fact check me if you want. We know what to do. The question is, are we willing? Because it's not about government. There are parts of this that have to do with the industry. No, the community. I'm going to say it and annoy you guys so much until you get up and do what you need to do. Is the community ready to fight for its own survival? Because really, I don't think they realize that you're actually in the race for your survival. When you start putting your films for free on YouTube, it's not a good thing. It means that you're reducing the value of your work. You're continuously educating the public that they shouldn't pay you value for your work.
Isioma, before we start paying tithes and offerings.
Sorry, please.
Well, I appreciate your passion. I think we're just going to wrap up so we can go to Q&A. But it's actually, it's valid, and every other country protects their own producers and their production. So even if you wanted to make a film and do an international co-production, they will already mandate that there's a minimum back end that needs to lie with their producer, even if the producer is getting free money or soft money. So every country is protecting their own. So it's really about us coming together to think about how we can protect ours. For the last, I'm just gonna, if you can take 1 minute to do one question. And this is for everyone, and it's the ask, right? So if you could get one thing, just one thing, built, reformed, funded in the next 24 months, in the next 2 years, and it's one thing that is going to change the game structurally. What is the one thing in terms of infrastructure, hard, soft, sustainable, residual? What's the one thing that you get built or funded in the next 2 years that will change the game? I'll start with you, Nara.
I think hope is even reform. First of all, it's the eradication of agri for institutions. Because to me, it makes no sense that there's a line item for street washing on your budget. It makes no sense. And what that tells even outsiders is saying this place is not secure for us to film. That also means reduction in budget. We can't keep laughing with these government CRS and they are creating stuff and we're not actually addressing proper problems. The other day I went to shoot at Saliko, and I did not even know the way they found out that we were shooting there. Upstairs, we had paid short film shoots, blah, blah, blah. From downstairs, they were looking up, apparently they look up whoever is shooting, and came to disrupt the shoot. We cannot pay, we cannot do anything without paying. And I'm like, I don't understand. We already paid for like access, we paid Lagos State government and everything. This money paid, what is it going into? I can't defend a budget to an international person and say, oh guys, as much as we are filming, there's a line budget that gives to certain people on the streets. It doesn't even look normal. That is the first thing first I feel like before this industry can go first. Because you cannot shoot anything. Why are we running to shoot outside when we have to be settling certain people? When you set another faction will come from somewhere. I had to ask one person and said, at my age, how many people have you paid salary? Before you walk away. These things do not make sense. I think for me, once they can eradicate that, we'll continue the rest one by one. Let's start from that.
Thank you. And that's a low-hanging fruit. It doesn't involve any building. It's really just security and getting that right. It's your mouth, one thing.
Okay, that's a very hard one. You really want me to narrow it to one. I would say the cinema revolution. Because I think that would bring real money into the system. And maybe if there's real money in the system, all these other soft and hard infrastructure will sort themselves out. Maybe part of the reasons why it's still also haphazard is everyone is just struggling to survive so much, they can't take a bit. I'm not giving you an excuse. They can't take a minute to actually sort it. So the cinema revolution, to me, the low-hanging fruit, I think it is without.
So that's community cinemas.
Community cinemas. You know, I should be able to eat bole and fish in my Nigerian cinema at 1,000 naira. That's what I believe.
All right, Chuka.
I hope I don't sound vague, but maybe reform a structure that can encourage more collaboration. I think when there's more collaboration, there's less pressure on each individual, you know, to succeed or fail, right? And it's shared. You know, so when there's something that encourages more collaboration, I think it will trickle down, because then everyone will come with their strengths, and the other person can, you know, cover your blind spots, and you can work on things that are bigger than what you would usually be, you know, limited with your own, you know, level of whatever it is, level of just, you know, understanding. So I think with that, in my opinion, everything else just trickles down, because people are then less afraid to venture into things.
That's great. So it's really something we can do ourselves and just mean each other well. We'll open up the floor to questions.
Okay, we have a gentleman in the middle here. Can we get a mic to him very quickly? There's lots of questions in here. Okay.
My question, I want to know whether there's a gap I've been seeing, and I want to know whether people have tried to address that gap and run into a problem, which is why it's not being done, or whether it is that it has not been considered at all. Because from experience, I know many times you see a problem, like, this is a solution now, why don't they do it like this? When you try and do it yourself, oh, that's why they are not doing it. So now, here is the problem. We're talking about infrastructure around Nollywood, and I've heard nothing about merchandising. And when you look at most forms of entertainment, the merch brings more money than the source material. So I'll use Pokemon as an example, because that's the biggest I can think of. The games are the source material, but Pokemon makes money from Pokemon cards, Pokemon dolls, shirts. Your children probably have Pokemon school bags or lunch boxes. I'm sure if I start mentioning IPs, Dora the Explorer, somebody here has a bag or a lunch box in their house to Dora the Explorer. Even cities, I'm sure in this room, somebody has a cap that says New York. You're buying New York's merchandise. So in Nigeria, the films we are making, we're not even designing them in a way where they can be merchandisable. I'm in the animation space, so that's why this is very clear to me to see. You have an IP, and that IP becomes so recognizable globally. There are even people that don't engage with the original source material buy the merch. Maybe you don't watch Dora the Explorer, but you bought the lunchbox. I don't see that happening with our own IP in Nigeria. To start with, I think one of our biggest problems, many people don't view animation as part of the film industry, and because of that, everything we're producing is realistic live action, which is not easily merchandisable. You can merchandise a talking dog, Scooby-Doo. You cannot merchandise a human being. What are you saying? So that's my question.
Thank you. What's your question? Thank you.
This year, ma'am. The industry not actually understanding the industry. I mean, people in this industry don't even understand the windows of exploitation, and then you want to complicate their life with merch. And you can actually merchandise an actual human being, especially with AI now, you can. So to me, I think we will get there, and we're getting there. I've been opportune to work with some comic book people when they started distributing through marketers. Until today, we are still paying for that scene. And if you want to know that going with the devil doesn't work, that this Nollywood thing will tell you. And so the challenge, again, is still a distribution side problem. Because if I do Iwaju launch boxes today, how am I going to sell it? In fact, by the time I launch it, when I enter my car and get to the road, there's a counterfeit version. And voila, nobody will know the difference between the one you are selling and the one you are selling on the road. So those issues need to be resolved. The issue of enforcement. Our copyright laws in Nigeria are fairly strong. You know, I mean, it's kind of out of date with AI, and we need to deal with that. And with my conversations with the NCC, they are beginning, you will soon start seeing a call for consultations around that. But to me, that is neither here nor there. We suffer on enforcement. And enforcement is twofold. You as a person who has been infringed upon, are you ready to go through the stress of enforcement? This lady right here, is still in court to today over a particular matter that we all know about. And that matter is a significant matter for jurisprudence, IP jurisprudence in Nigeria. It's just because of the kind of person she is that she was willing to take that a lot of people would not have continued with that. So again, when we, the person who has rights has been infringed on, don't want to go through the stress of ensuring that we make a point with enforcement, when we don't have guilds and associations that we will take the burden off of you as an individual and fight the fight, when we have an agency that is not necessarily well funded to even do that work that is their responsibility, it's just, you can see how it's just merged right now. I mean, do it all. If the music guys could find a way to sell their music through the marketers and make their money back, I don't see why Nollywood cannot try and find a way to do merch, but just understand that this is the landscape of doing merch in Nigeria.
So just because of time, what we're going to do is, we have a lot of people who want to ask questions on this panel. We're going to take the 3 questions very quickly. Please just go straight with your questions, and then the panelists can respond to whichever one that interests them or is, corresponding with the expertise. All right, so we have a lady in the middle. Yes?
Hello, on that and how that can be implemented. I also have a question for Nora. You said something about how you can't shoot 5 films at the same time because one person can go away with all your cast members, which means we have a shortage of cast members in Nigeria. So how do we bridge that gap? What would you suggest is the best way to go about that? Lastly, you said something about how we shouldn't put our movies for free on YouTube, but you also said that the TV culture is dying. So what then is the better alternative? If we don't put our movies on YouTube, what then do you suggest is the most profitable platform to put our movies on?
Of course, I understand why people have to put their films on YouTube. The point I was trying to make was, when YouTube is your only option, which means you put it on for free, then it shows that there's a problem. So if YouTube is what works for you, do that. I think that we really need to be looking at making films that can cross-sell. So making sure that if I make a film today, I should be able to sell in other markets and earn FX. And that will now mean, are we producing the quality of films that can do that? And when I say quality, I'm not talking about how shiny. Because let's not forget, what's that film that CJ did? Ojuju? No, Ojuju was, I'm sure it was CJ, that film in terms of how it looks, but that film went around the world because the story was original, it was well told. So I'm not saying you shouldn't, do the fancy lights or whatever, but I do think that the way there's a universal language for cinema. producers will talk about that. And we have people that are interested in Nigerians. So if you can make product that you can sell abroad, I think that's also another route to go. But honestly, YouTube is fine, but I'm saying that when everybody's going to YouTube, that is a sign that your industry is dying. So that's the answer for that. The second...
She asked you, but we want other people to ask questions, so maybe we can get your 3 questions, and you can meet her outside for the other one, because that's a longer answer. Nora, the question about shortage of crew.
Okay, yeah, we don't have shortage of cast. I mean, we've seen Kemadi Tiba's monologue and what has been going on. Like, the problem we have is like shortage of like equipment rental companies. We have just 2. Everybody knows Abazi and Nextdoor. So that means if 5 films are filming at the same time, you have to choose. I mean, I was talking to Ari distributor and they were telling me they know the number of Aris in Nigeria, not up to 5 or 6 in total. And again, Nollywood producer, you are going to meet these guys begging to reduce and give you plenty discounts. We are not the only one in the entertainment industry. There's music video, there's commercial. Those guys give them better money. They will prioritize them. I've seen a shoot where they said, oh, we don't have this Sony that you're requesting for, so can you go for Canon, can you go for something? That is the kind of problem I was highlighting. I don't know if that explains that.
Can we go with the next 2 questions very quickly? Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sergio Videos. It's called Rushing Time Studios. And while running that facility, I've learned a lot about Nollywood. And one key thing that has stuck out to me is the fact that we have a perception and value problem. And one of the things that we try to do, because we realize that coming from doing a lot of commercials and corporate work, building sets has always been a problem. So a quick journey, I went to Abuja, there's this polystyrene factory. We're trying to figure out how to build proper sets using different materials apart from plywood. But the owner of the factory just looked at us as jokers, because he just didn't see value in what we're trying to propose to him. All we know today in terms of sets is plywood. All we know in terms of sets, and plywood is such a wasteful way to build sets. We run a studio right now that's shooting a reality show in there, and after every project, there is such a lot of waste. Loma, was always knocking on our doors because we're throwing away a lot of plywood away. So how do we collaborate beyond within the industry with other, practitioners, with other industries? We have construction, we have architecture. Today, almost every YouTube film is using the same group of shoplets. That's not the way we can grow. How do we then collaborate? Because Chuka has mentioned that collaboration is one of our biggest problems. But collaboration is beyond coming together to do a film. It's beyond coming together to grow the industry and ensure we don't make the same mistakes that our forefathers have made.
Thank you. We'll go to the last question very quickly.
And I guess I'm piggybacking a bit off of the conversation, because you mentioned earlier about what's happening in the music industry and how there's a sense of like a kind of a guild, or like, there's some sort of like community of like how, I guess, because with what you said, it can be quite daunting and saying, okay, well, until you're waiting for, like you said, the wheels of government are going to take a certain time. And then, what can be done today? Like, what are the things, like obviously you had someone speak earlier about animation and merch, and people do things according to their productions, but in terms of even, for example, those standards and sets, the soft things that can be done within like working schedules for those, for those who are looking to come into the industry to safeguard, the talent and the crew, like what are the things that collaboratively can be happening so there is a standard that can start existing today? Like what does that look like? And who are, because like you said, there's many panels and we hear from people all the time, but what happens, like what is the kind of internal table talk that needs to happen to start that? And that could just be obviously your thoughts. Yeah.
Alright. Chika, do you want to take the second question?
Investing in making films, investing in the structures around the industry. When we invest in structures around the industry, right, like what I mentioned earlier, where you can, like an MBO Capital or another company, then be the finance holding company. Now you keep the producers that you get to collaborate, keep, I'm using this phrase, but not necessarily meaning that, keep them honest, right? But then keeping everyone, to to report, accountable, exactly, thank you, keeping them accountable. Now, because it's all about trickling down, in my opinion. When the producer is accountable to the barest minimum of everything, it will trickle down to even the gaffer. It will trickle down to everybody else, making sure that they are disciplined in things that they do. But then it will come from, firstly, encouraging, in my opinion, people to collaborate, come with your different strengths, but in a way that they will know that there is that part ownership of this thing that they're building, right? Once that happens, now there's that environment where they can do that. Yeah, the collaboration, I don't necessarily mean like what Soji said, right? I don't necessarily mean just getting people to come together to make a film. It's more of just getting everyone with different strengths to work together. Not necessarily investing together, just working together. Once that happens and you're keeping people accountable, to everything, for everything, it trickles down, and things like discipline, things like all of that, naturally will just happen.
Sima, just a quick note on what can be done today in terms of standards.
I think, you don't have to wait for the guilds and associations to set your standards. Collectives of people can decide that they are going to work based on certain standards and sign contracts to that effect. Contracts are legally binding documents. And little drops of water form an ocean. And it can start with that, and the information goes around the industry that if you work with the producers in this collective, these are the standards. And before you know it, it could cascade down. To me, that's the lowest way to start. I also think that the government has a big role to play in persuading the industry to self-regulate. And the industry needs to be aware, if you don't self-regulate, things like Opicon become a reality. And the government will come in, and when they come and regulate you, it will be a disaster. So that's what I'll say for now.
Okay, thank you all. I think just on a final note, for me, what I always thought about, like in more recent times, the fastest growing industry, to piggyback on whether we are an industry, has been the events industry. Like, so weddings, you see how weddings and parties and how everything has grown from within those big weddings. So the people who just do small jobs, the people who just do makeup, the people, they're designers, there are things that have kind of built from that. So it's kind of hard to put the onus on like the producer to be able to do everything. So the industry grows so they can build businesses, so you can license your merchandise. Like, you don't have to be the one to create the merchandising, so you can work with construction companies. That's how you build out an industry. So in thinking about growing infrastructure, there's the internal, my film, there's the micro, I'm trying to make a film, there's the I'm trying to build an industry, but I'm also trying to build across. So there are different people that can build businesses on the back of my industry. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming. Thank you to all the panelists.
Thank you. Make some noise. Let's have it.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you all. I came here to listen more than anything today, to learn more about what's happening in this film industry or community. I don't know how to call it now. I haven't been disappointed because it's been very, very interesting, and thank you so much to MBO Capital for organizing this film financing conference. And after having been 1.5 years in Nigeria, I really feel that there is something happening in this film industry / community in Nigeria. And I think we've heard a lot this afternoon about challenges and difficulties, but I take it as a growth crisis, a scale-up challenges, a bit of, I was tempted to say teenage crisis, but it would be an offense to the old age already of the film tradition in Nigeria. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that this community will turn in a real industry, if it's not one already, and it will really get mature. And so we want very much from the EU side to support this movement, embrace it, and also foster connections and cooperations with the European film industry, with creators. We are doing this across the board, not only in the audiovisual sector. We are coming very strongly in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, with funds for partnerships in culture and creative economy. All member states have been doing this for many years, but now the EU is also entering into the game hand in hand with the member states. And in particular, we launched, started a few weeks ago, its operation, a new project under the African-European Partnerships for Culture, which is the flagship program on creative economy, a project specifically on audiovisual cooperation between the EU and Sub-Saharan Africa. It's a 18.5 million euros project. So we'll say, okay, if it's for the whole of Africa, it's not much, but we hope that a big bunch will go to Nigeria. Of course, there will be competition with other countries, but given the strength of the film community and the audiovisual community more generally in Nigeria, we think that a good part of this fund should go to support co-creation and connections between EU and Africa, and also co-production. I think this is perhaps a word that I haven't heard a lot in the debate this afternoon, and I think that's also a way to help this community to scale up to a strong industry. And I must say that having been to several small festivals, film festivals across the country, in Enugu for Eastern Nigeria Film Festival, in Abuja for the Zuma Rock, and we are supporting other small festivals in Kaduna or Jos. There is really boiling creativity in Nigeria. We are also trying to support at a very small scale new creators and young creators, but it also gives me optimism on the potential of this country. And what we want to achieve through this new project with the audiovisual sector, which is implemented by GIZ, the German development agency, together with Expertise France, French expertise agency, is to enhance cooperation between actors along the value chain, the audiovisual value chains in Europe, in the EU specifically, and in Africa, in Sub-Saharan Africa, and also to connect talents, not only creators, but talents across the whole value chain, also technical talents, what we heard about distribution, production, post-production, the whole chain of value will be covered by this project. And also, we want to facilitate the access to audience, in particular young audience, for EU-African co-productions. We will also have a focus on the development of a pipeline of investment-ready, co-created audiovisual projects between the EU and Africa. So a lot of opportunities will come up during the 3.5 years of implementation of this project. But we also have another project ongoing, which is more focusing on financing. It's called Creatify. It's a 40 million euros blending project, so blending grants with loans, in particular for de-risking. And here in Nigeria, we have a part of this program, which is called Crea Fund, which is implemented by Proparco, which is the private sector branch of AFD, the French Development Agency, and it's about de-risking for investment funds. And I will meet them tomorrow to see how we can really unlock this project, which started last year, but we are not really, we need to expand a little bit its scope to be able to really achieve our targets. So voilà, we are really very excited by what's happening in Nigeria. We want to be part of this success story, and we think that also co-production and connection of talents in Europe and in Africa is also part of the solution. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're in the final session of the day, so I'm going to get the energy from you. Agreed? Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for the beautiful introduction, Wana. Before I introduce my fireside panelists, they are fires. We're going to watch a trailer. We're going to watch something, so I'm just going to ask you to divert your attention to the screen. while he plays very quickly. Tech team, you ready?
We're just getting reports from Nigeria that a heavily armed terrorist organization called Boko Haram have attacked another community and kidnapped over 200 girls from a boarding school.
Boko Haram, nufi abri ilimi nasara a gida kuwa. Mama da ta yi maka ruwa, mun ci da robi da kuma.
Papa, mau kabar makan saya anak ada.
Tadi dokter, kita nama sih.
Apa kan bila betul?
Tapi kali ini papa nggak berdiam, itu papa biasanya.
Tentang.
Everyone here has a story. How do we use that to be productive, to thrive, to grow?
Brilliant. You know, we just think how powerful film is. Look at the emotion that clip just brought in this room. And so, without further ado, I'd like to invite, you've seen her name on the screen. She's the executive producer of Mothers of Chibok, which is an Emmy-winning documentary. She is one of the complete, Nollywood figures from, in this industry. She's an actor, director, producer, and institution builder, and her career spans over 4 decades. We spent so much time together, so I'm not going to read her entire profile. But ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the one and only veteran, Miss Joke Silva, as she comes to the stage. Please sit down. I'm really excited because I'm on this stage with power people. I'm also going to invite a very well-rounded creative. She's a renowned writer, actor, producer, and presenter. Her career spans over 3 decades, and she has a degree from the Theatre Arts Department of the University of Jos, but she's arguably one of the biggest television stars on the continent, on one of the longest showing television shows on the continent. She's also known for shows like Fuji House of Commotion. On the big screen, we remember her in roles in The Wedding Party, 50, The Black Book, and The Origin, Madam Koi Koi. Please put your hands together for the ever elegant, ever stunning Ratiola Doyle. A round of applause, please, to get here. Thank you very much. All right, I don't know how MBO Capital did this, but you have on this stage 3 generations of Nollywood. You have Auntie Joke's career, which is over 4 decades, Ratiola Doyle, over 3 decades, and mine, over 2 decades. So you have 3 generations of Nollywood here. So when we take our picture, MBO Capital, we'll hand it to your reception, and you say, behold, greatness. Anyway, I digress. It's been an interesting day, and our industry is at a very interesting place. First of all, I really commend what MBO Capital is doing, creating a room where creatives, filmmakers, and funders can talk and meet, and we can discuss, the issues around our industry. And so my question, Mr. Director, I'd like you to go first, is around, and both of you would answer, is around longevity of career and relevance. Somehow in over 40 years and in over 30 years, you both have stayed relevant, but you've worn different hats. And today your most recent hat is as an executive producer of Mothers of Chibok. And so I wanted to just speak a bit to that, being relevant, also being the creatives who started from the front of the camera. How has that worked out?
Wow. Thank you so much, MBO Capital, for inviting me. Thank you so much, Lala. I mean, this is just such a wonderful moment because I'm not sure when next the three of us are going to be together like this, because we started out together. She was just reminding me terracotta those days, you know, modes of expression. And sometimes we feel kind of pulled to expressing all those modes of expression at one time, and then we become like what do they call it now? You're master of none, you know? So what I usually tell people is that for longevity's sake, what are you most passionate about in all your modes of expression? Focus on that. For me, it was performance, was in front of the camera. So I became known in the industry as a performer. And then after a while, I now wanted to express my producing side. After a while, I wanted to express my directing side. After a while, I wanted to express my teaching side. All right, but one came after the other, mastering one after the other. I think that's important. I know that in our industry, you know, sometimes you just want to put food on the table. So what that would then help to give you the staying power, and you'll find that you are pivoting at the right time, at the time that the industry needs your other skill. And I think I'll stop there. Does that cover?
Yes, that's a good introduction.
All right, look, there's longevity in the business and longevity in general. We're all actors here. We know for a fact that it's impossible. You cannot be the flavor of the month every month all year round. So to piggyback on what Ajoke said, you're going to have to find, maybe it's something you were doing before, you blew as an actor, something that draws you while you're acting, something extra to do. But longevity in the industry, this is how it works. Number one, your talent will get you into the room. Your ability to take direction, you being a team player, you being reliable, you being untoxic, will determine how far you go in the industry. And as you grow, then as you begin to build, as you begin to rise, you're going to have to begin to look at yourself as a business. And by so doing, you're going to have to put some structure in place so that you are not exploited. E.g., or i.e., a lawyer, i.e., an accountant, learn an agent, learn how to read a contract, learn how to negotiate, learn how to say no to the projects that do not serve your purpose or take you on to the next level. So after a while, you're going to have to change the way you think, the way you approach this business, and the kind of roles you take, and the people you fraternize with. That's what I think.
Excellent, excellent. Specifically to Mothers of Chibok. And you know, I like our topic, it's been highlighted, building an industry that lasts, from Nollywood's roots to a global audience. And I think that Nollywood's roots is very well represented on the stage. And more, and I think Triple A said it earlier, that our stories are looking like the it thing now on the global, you know, in the global landscape. It's like everybody wants to tell an African story. In the diaspora, even the abroad people are like, I want to go do something in the motherland. I want to do something in the roots. I want to go back to my roots, the motherland. And I'm just like, oh, we are the motherland. Okay, no problem. you know. And when you just see something that has Africa, you know, they'll just put one kente, okay, bam, it's African with Wakanda accent. Sorry guys, you know. And so, I'm so sorry. I promised myself that I'll behave well, you know. But our stories are beyond that. But then there's the thing about how do our stories get seen by the right people. And then there's this buzzword called collaboration. And so in your case, I mean, you can also speak from other experiences, but we'll use Mothers of Chibok as focus. How has that been for you as an EP on an Emmy-winning documentary, which is unscripted, which is not a feature, it's not fiction, you know, in a documentary, I think it's probably scripted. It's a feature. It's yes. And so how has that translated? And what are the, you know, does it have legs? I know you have it, but I want you to talk about that. Does it have legs to really have global impact and local impact?
Okay, good.
So I'm the maker, the director of one of the programs in the world. Let's look around. You can ask me what
Yes. And the one is Emmy for Magic.
For Magic.
The documentary on the street dancer who wanted to dance ballet, you know, and you know, they won an Emmy. Kachi came, you know, went to a very good friend and brother of mine and said, I've finished Mothers of Chibok. I want Madame Joke Silva to be the executive producer in bringing it to the Nigerian audience. All right? And that was Mr. Femi Odubeni. And Femi said, okay, yeah, we'll invite her to my office, but I cannot show you the test. She wants to see it first, you know. And so I went to the office. It was nice to see Kachi again. I'd seen him, you know, years ago. And they said, okay, we want you to watch this film. We'd like you to executive produce it, but I know you want to watch it first. And so I went into the screening room and I saw this, for me, was magic. Magic on two fronts. On one front was craft, and on the other front was a compelling story. Both of them coming together. For non-fiction, for a documentary, I like documentaries generally, you know, normally, but a 1.5 hour documentary, Father, in the mighty name of Jesus. And I was gripped. I went through all the roller coaster of emotions. There were times I was crying. There were times, I mean, it was full of so much humor. Because you hear Mothers of Chibok and say, oh God, yeah, onions carrying, no. It was so humorous. And what that showed me, when we talk of craft, we had incredible camera work. We had incredible editing. We had amazing directing. Now, how do you direct a documentary? It was the sensitivity. You could see the sensitivity in the shots that made it into the film. Because you knew that this director and the cameraman had to be patient to capture some incredible moments. And then the story itself. Mothers of Chibok is an open wound for the Nigerian state. It's something that we've had to live through. It's something that, and you know, big ups to all the people in their everyday life. You're watching how, it's not that they're pretending to be these over-strong women who have been through this problem. But they're incredible, dignified resistance because they continue to send their other children to school. They continue, and how do they do that? Through farming. And the way they educate the remaining children who have not been abducted, they are taught the value of work.
they are taught the value of negotiation. And there are just so many things. And then you see, there's something about the world today that wants to divide us into so many quarters. And in this documentary, you see a coming together of Christians and Muslims. They're worshiping together. They're eating together. Their children are playing together. And I said to Kachi after seeing all that, I said, God save you if you do ask me to. So and what does it mean to executive produce an already made film? It's not that I'm bringing the money to make the film. I mean, Kachi was making the film until he got backers when he said to them, it's to use your own social capital to get the Nigerian audience to see it. And it has been the same in every screening. We've had an incredible premiere that filled, it could have filled 3 screens. But we filled 2, and and then we've had so many screenings. It's been shown in Ghana, it's been shown in Kenya. We've had so many screenings, and it has always been the same. Because for me, it's the audience, like he mentioned.
Michael, who mentioned Naz.
As Naz mentioned. You sit down in the audience and everybody is watching a documentary, non-fiction, for 1.5 hours, and they are glued to that screen and they go through all the emotions.
Right. So thank you so much, Auntie. So what, if I pick a few things from your answer, what you're also saying sort of ties in some of the points from the previous panel, that maybe the audience doesn't know what they want until you present it to them. And many times we find that we restrict ourselves as filmmakers from here, saying the audience wouldn't watch that, the audience wouldn't watch that. Meanwhile, have we presented it to them? Have we marketed it rigorously to them? Have the distributors taken a chance on it to show it to them? And so, Ms. Doyle, I'm going to come to you. Through your career, and in this, now that we're talking about the global audience, right now, younger filmmakers / actors probably are thinking, do I need to relocate to get global attention or get global, international work, as it were? Both of you, and you now in particular, you've had a thriving career from here, and you have succeeded and conquered locally. And locally is not a negative word. You've you've conquered locally, and you have had international attention from there on. I want you to speak to that. You didn't even put the Power series on Amazon or your CV.
I'm so sorry, yes. Madam Casting Director.
Yes, because but I want you to speak to that, going international, because everybody has that on their wish list, but conquering locally.
When I started out, the mission statement was pretty simple. I wanted to be one of the most important actors to come out of Africa, period. I'd rather be, listen, you can't, all you can be is you, authentic you. And we got this international attention when, the world wasn't such a small global village. They will come looking for you. Be the best you can be where you are. Be counted amongst the best. Be counted among, they will come for you. I don't think you need to relocate to get that done. If anything, I suspect pretty much that you might slip through the cracks, as opposed to shining brightly where you are. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, in terms of funding and funding projects, and Auntie J, I'm coming back to you. Using Mothers of Chibok as an example, there are many stories in the last few years from Nigeria that have gotten international attention, but some of them have not been funded locally. Thankfully, MBO Capital is trying to change that, but that's not the full reality. And that's something I want us to unpack or to discuss. Now, you spoke about catchy making the film as he was getting funding. So he didn't even have all the money from the beginning. I don't know where the funding for Mothers of Chibok came from, and if you can let us know, I would like to know. And it's like people who want to make alternative things that are not mainstream find it difficult to get funding. And so my question is, who should get funding? And there's been conversations around return on investment, etc., but how do the alternative people who are not mainstream get funded? Because sometimes these are the stories that travel, and we are proving that there is an audience for them. I'd like you to speak to that. And Ms. Dole, you can also speak to that if you would like to.
Mothers of Chibok came after Daughters of Chibok, which was VR, and it also came after, but he had already started. It was whilst shooting Daughters of Chibok that he now got interested in shooting Mothers of Chibok. But by the international community seeing Daughters of Chibok, they were interested in him, and they invited him for Madu. All right? And so when you see the quality of work, quality of work, it was then that, okay, what else are you shooting? What are you doing next? You know, everything documentary, all right? And international funders. And they said, okay, he sent them Mothers of Chibok, which he had already started. And they said, okay, come and pitch for it. And so it was funded internationally and funded in such a way that he could do what he wanted. He had been going back and forth.
So, to piggyback on what Ajoka said, you're going to have to find, maybe it's something you were doing before, you blew as an actor, something that draws you while you're acting, something extra to do. But longevity in the industry, this is how it works. Number one, your talent will get you into the room. Your ability to take direction, you being a team player, you being reliable, you being untoxic, will determine how far you go in the industry. And as you grow, then as you begin to build, as you begin to write, you're going to have to begin to look at yourself as a business. And by so doing, you're going to have to put some structure in place so that you are not exploited. E.g., or i.e., a lawyer, i.e., an accountant, learn an agent, learn how to read a contract, learn how to negotiate, learn how to say no to the projects that do not serve your purpose or take you on to the next level. So after a while, you're going to have to change the way you think, and the way you approach this business, and the kind of roles you take, and the people you fraternize with. That's what I think.
Excellent, excellent. Specifically to Mothers of Chibok. And you know, I like that topic. It's been highlighted, building an industry that lasts from Nollywood's roots to a global audience. And I think that Nollywood's roots is very well represented on the stage. And more, and I think Triple A said it earlier, that our stories are looking like the it thing now on the global, you know, in the global landscape. It's like everybody wants to tell an African story. In the diaspora, even the abroad people are like, I want to go do something in the motherland. I want to do something in the roots. I want to go back to my roots, the motherland. And I'm just like, we are the motherland. Okay, no problem. You know, and when you just do something that has Africa, you know, they'll just put one kente, okay, bam, it's African with Wakanda accent. Sorry, guys. You know, and so I'm so sorry. I promised myself that I'll behave well. You know, but our stories are beyond that. But then there's the thing about how do our stories get seen by the right people. And then there's this buzzword called collaboration. And so in your case, I mean, you can also speak from other experiences, but we'll use Mothers of Chibok as focus. How has that been for you as an EP on an Emmy-winning documentary, which is unscripted, which is not a feature, it's not fiction, you know, in a documentary. I think it's probably scripted. It's a feature, not. It's yes, and so how has that translated? And what are the, you know, does it have legs? I know it has legs, but I want you to talk about that. Does it have legs to really have global impact and local impact?
Okay, good.
So I can say the maker, the director of one of the programs in the world. Let's give him a round. He's an Emmy award winner.
Yes. And the one is Emmy for Magic.
For Magic.
The documentary on the street dancer who wanted to dance ballet, you know, and you know, they won an Emmy. Kachi came, you know, went to a very good friend and brother of mine and said, "I've finished Mothers of Chibok. I want Madame Joke Silva to be the executive producer in bringing it to the Nigerian audience." All right, and that was Mr. Femi Odubeni. And Femi said, "Okay, yeah, we'll invite her to my office, but I cannot show you the test. She wants to see it first, you know." And so I went to the office. It was nice to see Kachi again. I'd seen him, you know, years ago. And they said, "Okay, we want you to watch this film. We'd like you to executive produce it, but I know you want to watch it first." And so I went into the screening room and I saw this, for me, was magic. Magic on two fronts. On one front was craft, and on the other front was a compelling story. Both of them coming together. For non-fiction, for a documentary, I like documentaries generally, you know, normally, but a 1.5 hour documentary, Father, in the mighty name of Jesus. And I was gripped. I went through all the roller coaster of emotions. There were times I was crying. There were times, I mean, it was full of so much humor. Because you hear Mothers of Chibok and say, "Oh God, yeah, onions carrying anger." No, it was so humorous. And what that showed me, when we talk of craft, we had incredible camera work. We had incredible editing. We had amazing directing. Now, how do you direct a documentary? It was the sensitivity. You could see the sensitivity in the shots that made it into the film. Because you knew that this director and the cameraman had to be patient to capture some incredible moments. And then the story itself. Mothers of Chibok is an open wound for the Nigerian state. It's something that we've had to live through. It's something that, and you know, big ups to all the people who brought a focus when these terrorists took away children because they went to school. But you watch this documentary and it's about the minutiae of their living, their everyday life. You're watching how, it's not that they're pretending to be these over-strong women who have been through this problem, but they're incredible, dignified resistance because they continue to send their other children to school. They continue, and how do they do that? Through farming. And the way they educate the remaining children who have not been adopted. They are taught the value of work. They are taught the value of negotiation. And you know, there are just so many things. And then you see, there's something about the world today that wants to divide us into so many quarters. And in this documentary, you see a coming together of Christians and Muslims. They're worshiping together. They're eating together. Their children are playing together. And I said to Kachi after seeing all that, I said, God save you if You didn't ask me to. You know? So, and what does it mean to executive produce an already made film? It's not that I'm bringing in money to make the film. I mean, Kachi was making the film until he got backers when he said to them, you know, it's to use your own social capital to get the Nigerian audience to see it. And it has been the same in every screening. We've had an incredible premiere that filled, it could have filled 3 screens. But you know, we filled 2. And you know, and then we've had so many screenings. It's been shown in Ghana, it's been shown in Kenya. You know, we've had so many screenings, and it has always been this. Because for me, it's the audience, like he mentioned.
Michael, who mentioned Naz,
as Naz mentioned. You sit down in the audience and everybody is watching a documentary, non-fiction, for 1.5 hours, and they are glued to that screen and they go through all the emotions.
Right. So thank you so much, Auntie. So what, if I pick a few things from your answer, what you're also saying sort of ties in some of the points from the previous panel, that maybe the audience doesn't know what they want until you present it to them. And many times we find that we restrict ourselves as filmmakers from here, saying the audience wouldn't watch that, the audience wouldn't watch that. Meanwhile, have we presented it to them? Have we marketed it rigorously to them? Have the distributors taken a chance on it to show it to them? And so, Ms. Doyle, I'm going to come to you. Through your career, and in this, now that we're talking about the global audience, right now, younger filmmakers / actors probably are thinking, do I need to relocate to get global attention or get global, international work, as it were? Both of you, and you now in particular, you've had a thriving career from here, and you have succeeded and conquered locally. And locally is not a negative word. You've you've conquered locally, and you have had international attention from there on. I want you to speak to that. You didn't even put the Power series on Amazon on your CV.
I'm so sorry, yes. Madam Casting Director.
Yes, because, but I want you to speak to that, going international, because everybody has that on their wish list, but conquering locally.
When I started out, the mission statement was pretty simple. I wanted to be one of the most important actors to come out of Africa, period. I'd rather be, listen, you can't, all you can be is you, authentic you. And we got this international attention when, you know, the world wasn't such a small global village. They will come looking for you. Be the best you can be where you are. Be counted amongst the best. Be counted among, they will come for you. I don't think you need to relocate to get that done. If anything, I suspect pretty much that you might slip through the cracks, you know, as opposed to shining brightly where you are. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, in terms of funding and funding projects, and Auntie J, I'm coming back to you. Using Mothers of Chibok as an example, there are many stories in the last few years from Nigeria that have gotten international attention, but some of them have not been funded locally. Thankfully, MBO Capital is trying to change that, you know, but that's not the full reality. And that's something I want us to unpack or to discuss. Now, you spoke about Kachi making the film as he was getting funding. So he didn't even have all the money from the beginning. I don't know where the funding for Mothers of Chibok came from, and if you can let us know, I would like to know. And it's like people who want to make alternative things that are not mainstream find it difficult to get funding. And so my question is, who should get funding? And there's been conversations around return on investment, etc., but how do the alternative people who are not mainstream get funded? Because sometimes these are the stories that travel, and we are proving that there is an audience for them. I'd like you to speak to that. And Ms. Dole, you can also speak to that if you would like to.
Mothers of Chibok came after Daughters of Chibok, which was VR, and it also came after, but he had already started. It was whilst shooting Daughters of Chibok that he now got interested in shooting Mothers of Chibok. But by the international community seeing Daughters of Chibok, they were interested in him and they invited him for Madu. All right? And so when you see the quality of work, quality of work, it was then that, okay, what else are you shooting? What are you doing next? You know, everything documentary, all right? And international funders. And they said, okay, he sent them Mothers of Chibok, which he had already started. And they said, okay, come and pitch for it. And so it was funded internationally and funded in such a way that he could do what he wanted. He had been going back and forth over two years by the time this funding came, all right? So I believe that there are the kind of funding we need in our industry. What I will say no to, a capital no, is debt. Debt that is short term. We cannot afford. We're too high risk. When there are too many structures that are not in place, we do not have I've been listening to all the panels, and the thing is that our distribution still needs to grow parallel to content creation. It's a parallel growth. So what I would suggest is a parallel investment for content and for distribution. So what kind of funding do we need? Like Mothers of Chibok got patient capital. Patient. And I'm not talking patient capital of 2 years and then say I gave you 1 year moratorium, so come and pay me back. No. Excusez-moi, s'il vous plaît, I am looking at something of 10, 15. Okay. Why? Yes. Why do I say that? Because you cannot rely on only one film from a producer. There has to be a slate. Just like Naz was saying, it's a slate. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, when you fund, I will just quickly add this. Now, when you come with a niche project, for example, which you discovered is not niche, there are people who want to watch it. A Mothers of Chibok, all right? One of the interesting things is that people think that a documentary does not make money. Are we so wrong? Please go and do your research. The amount of money these documentary filmmakers make, it is not big. But if it is properly funded, so for instance, I'm not using Mothers of Chibok now, I'm just going to use I'll just bring out some figures from the kind of research I've done. There's some documentaries that have been made for $1 million, $2 million, and then they are picked up. They are bidded for by streamers, by studios. They are bidded for, and they can earn as much as $12 million, $18 million. How many? It's over 100%, over 200, almost like 500%.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So there is a market and there is profit in non-fiction.
Or non-mainstream.
Or mainstream, yes.
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 Mr. Ola, you might want to contribute to this particular
funding?
point. Yes, funding, because I know you've made a film, you produced a film of it. And if you are willing to share how you funded that and what that experience was like.
All right.
This funding, because they are telling us to round up.
Okay, very quickly, like you said, as you go to a point, you deviate into something else. I've gone back into producing. The first was the 13-part television series that was commissioned by African Magic. The second one, which is my first film, was funded by family and friends. Ireti Doyle is a name. We trust her with her acting. She has to earn her stripes as an executive producer. So, and I want to believe that a lot of budding producers got their first funding from close family and friends.
Yeah.
They expect returns on they expect a return on their investment, but in the beginning you're going to have to prove yourself. And sometimes, my proof of concept is a very short film. It's under 40 minutes, minimum cast, one location. You want to strengthen your hand, so to speak, before you go for something bigger. So, if you're lucky, you're surrounded by good people, get it from family and friends, savings, do your proof of concept, develop your confidence, and then, that's why we're here today, to find out exactly where the money is and be able to walk to them confidently and say, I am capable of doing this. This is what I've done before, I understand the business, and, take a chance on me.
Right, so from two of you, I've heard Anjoke has spoken strongly about the quality. And so this thing about understanding the business, about growing your craft, about knowing what you're doing. Because it's sounding like it's when you do that you can access funding. But this thing about the funding, and this is where I want us to start to round up. Accessing funds, how do we access these funds? And what do we do? And I'm going to just try to balance it, also trying to think like the funders. What do we do with the money and how do we guarantee them their return on investment? Whilst we're saying, give us the money, but have patience, give us patient capital. Don't give us money on debt. We're making all these demands, but they're also running a business. Where is that middle ground?
Go first. I think the middle ground is, first of all, understanding that this business is volatile. There are no guarantees. And it's like kind of what we say when you're getting involved in the stock market. Don't put in money that you cannot afford to lose. It's not what an investor wants to hear, but that is the truth. There is money. People are finding funding, like she said. Hopefully I'll find one place where, I can access such funding. But this much I don't have all the answers. That's why I'm here. I don't know exactly where to go. I'm here to figure out where to go. But this much I will say, when you do get the money, please channel it where it should go. Do not get the funding and go and rent an apartment in Lekki first. No. Do the project. There was a question that was asked during one of the panel sessions. Where should the bulk of your money go? Should it be production or your human capital? And I am speaking personally speaking, if it is a choice between a high-end camera that I can do without and paying my human capital, and when I say human capital, I'm talking about both cast and crew.
Yeah.
The best I can, I would always go with satisfying my human capital, because as far as I know, and speaking from experience, and again, I am speaking about cast and crew combined, the most important element on your set is your human capital. Everything, your script, your director, the cameras, the lights, respectfully, I don't know anybody who goes to the cinema to go and watch camera angles and the lighting. That's a secondary conversation. First and foremost, they are going to watch a theatrical performance, a story unfold as told or as enacted by actors. So if you take care of your human capital, that's more than half the job done.
Yeah, and human capital also goes into like the writers who actually write,
Everybody,
you know, the human being that
value
wrote the
chain.
script,
Yes.
etc., etc.
When we're talking of funding, I thank you for what you said, Riti, and I'll piggyback on what you said. For me, I think the kind of funding that Nollywood, the creative industry, needs is the kind of thing that we do for agriculture, all right? Long-term, patient capital. It needs at the beginning when you are developing the project. Honestly, I believe a grant is what is needed at that point in time so that the writer can go through different iterations of the script until you get something that is ready to work with. A lot of times, what we get are scripts that are not ready, you know, but we just go ahead and shoot because we need to, you know. So there's that. And, you know, once an MBO capital is coming in, those are the kind of things, you know, you want a well-developed project to work with. Once it's well-developed, and then when I say patient capital, I'm talking about equity. Equity investors. Don't give me commercial loan. No, I will not take it. I won't. It is too high risk. I must sleep. When I finish work, I must go home and sleep. Not thinking, hey, I have to start paying back it. No. I need to be able to get that equity investment, which sometimes comes out at a higher interest, but there is time to exploit. And the reason why we say patient capital is that you need to exploit all the windows. Cinemas can only get you so much. How many screens do we have? After cinema, where else are we going? What else can be exploited? You exploit this product for as much as possible. Now, when you get to the point where you can see the point, maybe there's been an uptake of the product, all right? Now you can give me loan, commercial loan, because I can see where the money will come from. Exactly.
Excellent.
So what I will say to MBO Capital, honestly, this industry at this time needs three kinds of investment. One, and they must all run parallel. They need to run parallel. You can't fund one and not fund the other. Content, distribution, and skill. We are skilling, like somebody mentioned on this platform, where thousands and thousands of people are being trained, but they cannot get work because they do not have the skills. Ireland has skilled its people so much that Hollywood just keeps going to Ireland. A lot of the big productions that we see are being shot in Ireland simply because the skills are there, good quality skills. So if we run all those parallel, I think this young man will see the revolution that
she talked about.
Yes, that she talked about.
Okay, and then we'll just take your final words as we close. Yes.
Don't forget the area boys.
Yes.
Because the environment has to be conducive.
Yes.
Even if you get the funding, you get the structure, the country has to work, the environment has to be conducive. So absolutely soft loans, patient funding. It's a long game, but as the industry has shown, there's promise and there's profit to be made. People are making it. People have made it. Once it's done, I mean, that's the hard part. Doing it, starting it is the hard part. Some people have started it. Let's put our hands together, get all the support we possibly can get from people who understand how the industry works and the kind of monetary infrastructure that we need. Not just monetary infrastructure, the guilds as well need to change. One of the reasons why the actor is one of the most unprotected people on any set is because the guild would rather go, major in the minor and go for low-hanging fruit as opposed to dealing with the core issues. Are there set working hours? Is there protection on set? Are the sets insured? If an actor gets hurt on set, who deals with that? Very important things. Ensuring that the working condition is safe and sound for the actor. Things like that will go a long way in improving, the way we, how did Isioma say, the way we engage, the way we even do this business will change and things will improve.
And I think those things will definitely position us better for this global audience in terms of telling our stories, because our stories are being told, but they're just not being told by us on the level that we would like. And so we're saying that we are ready to tell our stories, we're ready to nurture careers for a long time, but we need the support, we need the funding, we need the skill set, we need to collaborate, and then we can go global. Thank you very much. Now on my next round, thank you everybody, this was great. Please give my panelists a round of applause.
We're not leaving yet. Oh, we have some time for about 2 questions.
Yay, thank you so much. So we're going to take 2 questions. You are nice to me.
Okay, we have someone at the far back, right there. Can you
at the far back.
Hold the microphone down to the back. Please just tell us your name and go straight with the question. Thank you.
A sort of charity kind of work where I then start to reap the benefits of my investment, or when society starts to reap the benefits of my investments, or is there any other thing for me if I'm investing in long-term? Thank you.
Okay.
On the screen actually fascinates me a lot because it's all about how we are able to move the industry forward based on what Auntie Jokesiwa talked about, which is togetherness. And secondly, I'm also very excited about
your question, sir. Your question, please.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. Just allow me.
We want to give somebody a chance that has a question.
Can I please just, if you let end the question, please. Please, thank you very much. So, the generational power.
Seconds, sir. Thank you.
The generational power is fine, but we are missing the Gen Z. Then the problem about the making the industry last longer than it is now is the problem of unity in the industry itself. We find out that the giants the industry is producing are actually in conflict, and if the head has issues, then the house will collapse.
Thank you very much.
So,
thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
But I've not heard all the panelists, which has to do with standardization. So we're talking about building an industry that lasts. What is industry doing in terms of standardization? Because we have some, if you look at some American music movies, after 3 years, 5 years, they are still relevant because they have a particular standard. So in the Nollywood industry, what is industry doing to be sure that if I produce a film, it has a particular standard, be it in Ireland, in the US, everywhere. So what is being done?
Okay, thank you. You want to take his question?
Yeah. Everywhere in the world, there are A-list films, B-list films, Z-list films. Art is subjective, if you understand what I'm saying. As long as there's an audience for what you're making. Where standardization comes in is making sure that you don't cross any lines, making sure that you're not vulgar, making sure that you're not divisive and things like that. But when it comes to art, it's kind of like what Na said. Who is determining what is good and what is not good? You might not like what I produced, but they like it. So whose standard? What's the minimum standard? If you're talking about technical values, that's a different conversation entirely. And that can be measured by global standards. Okay, you need, your lighting has to be good, your sound has to be good, your technical values have to be high. But when it comes to the content itself, the artistic content, who's the standard?
And just to speak to that as well, in terms of technical standards that one can take anywhere that may not be subjective, there are standards before a film can be screened in a cinema. It has to be shot on at a certain ratio, etc., and that is being done. A lot of our films show in cinemas here can play in cinemas abroad. Now, in terms of sound quality, you know, all of those things. Now, that is dependent on the budget, dependent on the scale, and many things. So, for example, a film that is produced for YouTube, when you play it maybe in a big cinema, you will see it, you might see a difference in quality. Might, depending on how the producer set out to make that film. Now, so it's not, the onus is not on the industry to standardize. People are making films they can make at the budgets that they have for the audiences they are making them for. Now, can there be structures in place? Can there be regulations? Perhaps. And that is what the censors board does. For example, a film before it's shown, it has to, if the censors board doesn't approve it, it's not aired. It doesn't go anywhere. Even for Netflix, there are rules. When the film's being made straight to Netflix at the time during the streaming boom, there was quality control. You know, there are things that if you don't do this and that, we will check it. If Netflix or a platform is funding a film directly, they will check on the quality before because they know the audience they are streaming it to. So I think that is dealt with. Now, the second question was about what is in it for the financier.
Yes, and I want you to answer that question because I'm explaining the way I could explain it.
I mean, I think it's a long game, and I always say that we need to extend from grace to Nollywood. And in an earlier platform, you know, somebody said, I think it was Michael from Ebony Light who said, we always compare Nollywood to Hollywood so quickly, and we forget that that industry is in hundreds of years, and our industry is actually still growing in a very volatile country and a very volatile economy. And we cannot separate our industry from our country. When we're talking about the cost of cinema tickets, and I'm saying this because this now goes back to what's in it for the financier. The reason I cannot go to a financier and say, this is the film I want to make and I can guarantee you 100 billion in 2 weeks, is because I don't have the number of screens to get the number of bums on seats in a weekend release. I don't have a country where 10,000 naira is accessible to people. When I'm speaking to filmmakers, I'm saying, when you're making a film for the Nigerian audience, and I always say, the Nigerian paying audience are people that will wake up, bath, enter a car, and go to the cinema to ask for a Nollywood film. Not the people that say, oh my God, I don't want Nollywood, I can't watch Nollywood. Those are not the people we're making films for, right? Now, those people, how many of them can afford to transport themselves to the cinema because they don't have cars, right? How many of them can afford to pay for it? Until people can pay 1,000 naira, 500 naira to watch a film. We can't really promise our financiers a lot on the back end. So we need to be creative with how we exploit it. So we will do the cinema now, we'll get very little, but then in another year we will go to a streamer that will give us maybe a region, maybe Kaba, maybe Netflix, maybe just for Africa. We'll get another little. We will try and see if we can exploit it, you know, via airlines or whatever. But that also means we have passionate distributors who are willing to take the risk on different titles and who will do the work. Now, when we have a limited number of distributors who are not taking the risk, what are we then saying? So this thing is a cycle. And so the financier just puts the pressure on the producer to make magic. It's not jazz. And so it's why we need to work together, build the platform, and then at the end of the day, everybody will be happy. And so, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
You know that Nala is extremely passionate. Let's have one.
I've finished.
But you know what? I think it's very important. We are in a film financing conference, and we do have a financier here.
Yes.
So, Adekunle, what's in it for the financier?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. My name is Adekunle Adebisi. Some people have been calling me AAA or the Money Man.
Yes.
I claim it. I'm going to try and answer what is in it for the financier, whilst I have these three beautiful young ladies on stage here as well. Okay, so we don't just finance films at MBO Capital. All right, we're a private investment firm, so that means private credit, private equity. We invest in a number of sectors. We have healthcare investment, so a private hospital platform. We own a retail business. The chairman of the business is right here. So if you have questions why that business, something you can ask him later. We have a bunch of different businesses we invest in. Aviation, mining, my colleagues are around there, we can tell you the rest. And for us, the fundamental challenge with Nigeria is, even though we like to boast about the fact that we're the most populous country in Africa, 230 million, 240 million people, one of the things we've addressed, I'm sure you'll agree with me, is our market is much smaller than that. We have an underclass of at least 100 million people. I don't care how the government wants to jimmy the stats, the actual problem is an unemployment problem. All right, and for us, film financing is part of our broader strategic interest in the creative sector. Because, and I'm very passionate about this and emotional sometimes, the creative sector has two things going for it that I think speak to Nigeria's comparative advantage. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. If there's one thing Nigeria has more than any other country in the world, it is the proportion of young people we have. We have the highest proportion of young people. The data free to say like this. So the median age of the world is 30. The median age of Africa is 20. The median age of Nigeria is 18. Half our population is 18 and less. All right? And then on the flip side, if there's one thing that the creative sector does, is it almost exclusively employs a lot of young people, as you can see. All right? Females and young people. And at MBO, we invest based on things. We invest in almost anything, especially on the sectors we invested in. But we have 5 investment themes. The first one is job creation. One of the other ones is female and youth empowerment. All right? Because we believe if our investments create jobs and also empower women and young people, that benefits Nigeria. And more importantly, what it does as well is it allows us to, when we invest in businesses, we invest in businesses, you invest in people, really. And when you invest in people, you give them jobs. They're able to send their kids to school, put a roof over their heads. They're able to become part of that consumer class. So that's 10 to 15 million people becomes 20, 30 million people who can, buy a nice car, go out to the cinema, they have disposable income in their pockets. So that's why we do this. We do this so that we can create jobs, so that our other businesses can have people that have jobs access those businesses. Youth empowerment is very important. And, not for nothing, I don't know if you've noticed, right? But today I took a poll. Over 70% of the representation on stage today has been women. Our MC is a woman. All our panels were led by women, all right? Men have been in the minority. And we didn't do that on purpose. We did that based on merit. Who are the people qualified to speak, to moderate, to champion this sector? And yeah, it's women and young people. So that's why we do what we do. And thank you again, females, young people, for taking part in this. I think we're going to have some questions, but before I think I also want to hand over to the reason why we are here today, the MD of the businesses, the MBO, Michael Babajide Ogundare. Mr. Ogundare, please come and take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Kule. If you don't mind, I'd like to first of all say thank you to all MBO Capital staff, or members of the MBO Capital family. Thank you very much. Thank you. I sat here from the very beginning up until when I got on just now. I'm really, I can't put it into words because I know how we started down this path. In 2017, we decided we wanted to venture into this sector because we saw it as an opportunity to grow, for us to grow, and to grow with the sector. We've come a long way. I sat all through the sessions this afternoon, and I had a lot of problems that this industry is meant to have, or this community is meant to have. I say to you that you have come a hell of a long way. Where you are today is miles away from where you started from. So kudos to you because you've done very well so far. Please give yourself a hand of applause. That said, where you are today, I can promise you we're going to be part of your evolution, going to the next level. We're going to commit more resources. And one thing has clear to me this afternoon, it's not just about money. We knew this, but we're going to have to find ways of helping in areas that have nothing to do with money. We're talking about skills, infrastructure. Well, that needs money, but we're going to find creative ways to do it. it was good that we had the EU ambassador here because they're actually doing very interesting things that could help us. Let me not lie to you, we're in this for the money we can make. All right, yeah, exactly. And we know we can make a lot of money, and we know you can make even more than you're making now. Nigeria is right. We have issues, but you've done fantastically in spite of those issues, and we're not giving up. We're going to do more. I'm not going to take too much more of your time. I thank you all for coming. We're really humbled because when we started this thing last year, we didn't think it was going to, grow to what it is today. I look at people in the room, much more than we had last year. We're looking forward to next year. But between now and then, please engage with us. My guys have given away how much they have in their kitty to invest. They must invest before the end of the year. So please, between...
Sir,
okay.
Are your terms friendly? Are you a patient lender?
Well, put it this way. The last 3 years, we've doubled in what we've invested on an annual basis. So some people are enjoying, and I think there are people in this room that we've done business with, and I don't see them
cringing yet.
In fact, they've done well, and they continue to do well, and we continue to back them. I have to say, we deploy capital both in debt and in equity. Okay, so it's not a problem, and no one size fits all. We will find what works for you, and if it works for us, we will do it. Okay, but let me just thank everyone for coming. I think AAA says that they say there's an after party. I don't know about after party, but there are refreshments outside, and we can continue the networking. Thank you very much for coming.